minutes for May 25th, and we were just handed the June 17th minutes as well. President's remarks, General Manager's report, OPA 45th Anniversary Celebration report, Sharon, public comment, old business motion to validate ESD contract extension, Sharon O'Hare, new business motion to retire existing sports core mortgage, Ray Unger. Discussion, availability of board meeting items, including CPI and requests that need to be voted on, as well as adding the financials to every board meeting agenda, and GM report from Terry Moore. Appointments to the advisory committees, media questions, and adjournment, respectfully submitted by Dan Statursky. Any changes or adjustment? Okay, accepted by acclamation. Minutes. Let's do May 24th.
25th,
First, 25th, excuse me, first. Any changes or adjustments to that?
Move to accept.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. June 17th, which I just got, so,
Minute to read.
yep. Changes or adjustments?
Move to accept.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, President's remarks. Wanted to start today off by with some good news and a thank you. As many of you may know, we've had a bit of a long-standing imbalance in the funding per capita from the county to our fellow residents who live here in Ocean Pines when compared to other communities in Worcester County, and we started a specific project this year to evaluate the county budget, put together a nice fancy spreadsheet, which basically pointed out the imbalance, inequity, whatever word you want to use, that simply showed folks at the county level the imbalance of the per capita income we were getting versus other communities. Folks like Dennis Hudson and myself and Sharon O'Hare worked on that fancy little spreadsheet. Bob Thompson obviously worked on this project with us, and Sharon and Ray Unger and I went to the county to make the presentation. And I want to formally thank Judy Boggs, Jim Bunting, Bud Church, and all the county commissioners and the staff at the county. We just received a 19.1% increase in our funding from the county over last year. So, good, solid, joint, cooperative effort without anybody yelling at anybody. Worked out very well. So, very happy about that.
How much is that?
Was it 80? Okay, Bob will break it down later. He has the details and exactly what it was. And with that, we'll move on to the general manager's report.
All right, going to do my report a little differently today. No PowerPoint. Going to kind of go through a number of things. First, talked about boat ramp. It was requested that we do a survey at the boat ramp. Survey's being completed. I'm going to pass out the results of that survey. White Horse boat ramp. I'll go over the results momentarily.
Was it just White Horse or both?
Just White Horse. All right, what we did was the dates were June 15th and 16th, and 22nd and 23rd. They were both weekends. We had a survey conducted. The employees of the aquatics department were the ones that participated in the survey. The time the survey was conducted was 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. each of those 4 days. The results were 168 people used the ramp over that 4-day period. 139 of those people using the ramp identified themselves as OPA residents. 29 identified themselves as non-residents of OPA. Of the 29 users who identified themselves as non-residents of OPA, 1 identified themselves as a Whitehorse Park resident, 13 identified themselves as friends or family members of OPA residents, and 15 identified themselves as others. What I've attached here for you is a copy of the surveys, the actual surveys that were taken that day. You'll notice they are front and back, so don't miss any. And every person that pulled up, we identified the tag. Basically, when we say the tag, we didn't take the tag number. We took which state they were from, whether it was a boat, a Sea-Doo, or some other type of operating equipment on the water. Resident, non-resident, property owner, full-time, part-time, renter, other, friend or family member, and if there was a boat dealer involved, we'd ask them who they were delivering for, resident, non-resident. So the board had asked that be conducted. There are the results. Any questions?
Yeah. Let us take a look at this for a second, Bob, before we move on. So I didn't get out a calculator, but somewhere around 8% of the folks that were identified as using the ramp were non-Ocean Pines members. Is that right?
I came closer, 15%.
29 were non-residents, but of those 29, half of them had an affiliation with the residents. So really you're looking at 15, 16 people out of 168.
And that would be
About 8%. Or if you took all 29, it's about 20%. So the non-resident, well, let me ask the definition. I mean, I know what the word resident means, but for the purposes of this study, non-resident meant non-member.
I read, when you say non-resident,
This says 29.
someone
of
who
them-
doesn't live in the community.
Okay, so they're non-members and they're not residents. Okay. So about 20, okay. Marty, you have any?
Well, I'm going to spend some time looking at it. I'm counting more non-residents on the sheets than I'm counting on the summary, but that may be because of some, I may be looking at something twice. I don't know.
Well, it appears that, on just a quick look at the survey, that, and I'm looking at somebody from Pennsylvania who's identified as a property owner. So I'm assuming that you're looking, resident means property owner.
Yeah.
and not
Correct.
resident.
They own property here in the community. Again, there's no action on it. I did the
But
survey.
you went a little further and even identified those that were family or friends of property owners.
Ask the question.
We
did, yes, ma'am. Again, didn't take any action or make any summation of it, just gave you the facts of what occurred during the survey.
Which is what we asked you for.
All right, well, why don't we take this under advisement so we have some more time to study this and look at what the results are showing us. Any objection to that?
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, for the month of May, you have the controller's report. You pick them up in your boxes. We had a negative variance of $52,999 or $53,000. The majority of it was, if you look through your report, 45 of it were marina sales, fuel sales.
No marina fuel sales. Right.
So that's where the majority of it came in. We were compared to budget. Just a couple items I want to point out. our memberships are down. Memberships are hurting us in the aquatics and beach club parking. For those had a negative impact. The yacht club missed budget by near 9,000, but they were positive revenue to expenses. But they're still off budget, but the positive, you look at that. When we did the budget, we weren't anticipating having both sides of the yacht club under construction at the same time, so we figured we'd take a little bit of a bump this month. Positive thing I want to highlight in the financials, golf ended the month in a positive variance to budget, almost 7,000. So that was a good thing to see. I see two hands up. Yes, sir.
I have a little question about that. Going back to golf. Yeah, I see you did have a positive variance to budget. And your budget number, let's see. Golf ops, here.
Combined is page 10, if that's what you're looking
Yeah,
at.
well, yeah, I have it here. Yeah, the budget number is $4,084. And we brought in $10,000, so, obviously we're at $6,600 to good, which might be good. Except, I guess I'm a little bit mystified as to where the budget number came from.
The approved budget from February.
When we approve a budget, you all got to know this. We approve a budget, we approve an annual budget. So what we approved for golf was a negative variance of $150,000. In other words, which we thought was pretty optimistic of Bill Casper. But so we approved 150. Okay. Now we didn't approve how that 150 was, or how that budget goes month to month. So really, the only thing that we can do is look back, at past years and so forth, and check, what we did in the past. Now May is, we budgeted $4,000 profit. That's arguably the best month we've got in golf. I mean, I think it is. I mean, maybe September or October are better, but they're the top three, and anybody that plays it. Now, if you look at what happened, say, last year,
56,000 lost same time.
what was budgeted?
For last year?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the budget book. I don't know what was budgeted.
I can tell you. What was budgeted last year was $40,550. Okay, and I think we were budgeting that down a little for May because we didn't expect, because of the the course, the all that stuff. We didn't expect to do it. But if you look at the year before that, we budgeted. Here we are. We budgeted $57,495, and actually that was a year Casper did good, and they exceeded that budget by $5,000, $57,000. So I'll repeat my question. Last year we budgeted $40,000 and expecting a down year. The year before that we budgeted $57,000 for May, anticipating a good year, which we did better. And this year we budgeted $4,000. So if you don't look good doing that, I mean, I don't know how you could. But I just want to know, repeat the question, where's the $4,000 come from? I mean, where did that number come from?
All right. Well, we had would you like me to go through the numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. Month actual was 169,613 in revenues against a budgeted amount of 190,315, which ended up with a negative variance at the top of the page. Merchandise, food cost, beverage cost, we budgeted 17,000. I'm sorry, the actual was 17,125, ended the month at 18,123, so the total revenues were 152,487, month budget 172,192. We're still down a little bit, but then you start looking at the expenses that Billy Casper managed: golf shop labor, maintenance labor, F&B labor, payroll taxes, health benefits, workers' comp. That total labor, 86,000. The actual budget amount was 85,230. These are the numbers you were looking for, right?
No, I think you misunderstand my
I
question.
must be misunderstanding.
Yeah, I mean, I can read these, and I know that, I think they all add up. So
Let
I'm
me
not questioning that.
see if I can help. I believe what you're asking is that the budget for this year in number for golf for this year was a loss of $150,000. Where did the month by month number come from? I'm assuming these budget numbers came from Casper month by month by month.
The whole
Same
thing
thing
for
we've done
Casper.
since I've been here,
Yeah.
and I think prior to me being here, you budget how many rounds per month, what that'll generate. You all went in great detail over it during the,
No.
Yeah.
No, we did not go over the month by month in great detail. No, we didn't.
Never saw it.
Was it taken in consideration the greens work still in May? Because we weren't sure when it was
for
gonna.
this year.
Because we weren't sure when it
When
was
the
gonna be
budget was built,
completed.
and again, I'm not sure, I didn't bring last year's
Well,
budget.
No, I'm talking
Okay,
about,
let's one at a time here, and Marty had his hand up next. Marty?
You know how comparing a budget is like Jello on a wall. Looking at the number, you call it a positive result.
It is a positive
Okay,
result.
if we don't, let's take last year out, because last year it was basically closed, and we lost 58,000.
Correct.
Take it out. The 4 preceding years, the average income, bottom line net, was 57,593. That means we're off 80%.
Again,
but
you,
That's not positive.
yeah,
Right,
but
here-
that's why I
if we're-
mentioned what I mentioned, because the greens were still being worked on. and
Not
I
in
don't-
May, they weren't.
No, they
We
weren't.
were open to bands.
No, they weren't.
all right, here's what I can tell you. If we need to change our accounting methods on how we budget, we've done this month in and month out, at least for the 3 years I've been here. If we're doing it wrong, or you don't like the way we're doing it, please coach me on the way you'd like to have it done in the future. I don't know what you're asking.
Okay, let me try it again.
Mr. Stevens, please let me finish. We report these the same way each and every month. I'm not sure why. This is a good thing for the association. We're in a positive variance this month. Why is it bad?
Let me ask the question again, if I may. Try and put it a different way. Why is there such a huge disparity between the budget, if you're doing it the same way every year, between the budgeted number this year and the budgeted number last year, and an even larger disparity between that budgeted number for May and the year before that? And if I go back, that disparity will continue. So
Okay.
we had $50,000 roughly, 40,000, 57. And I can go back, and every May, as far back as I go, which is pretty damn far, you will find those kinds of numbers. This year, we have 4,000. I think you can answer my question another way, maybe not right now. I would like to see it month to month, and I would like to see it pretty quick. I would have already asked for it. I would like to see a month-to-month budget
Okay.
for golf.
I will point out-
That will answer the question, no.
I will
Okay.
pull out the budget book that you all approved in February, because that's where we got the information.
Month to month.
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Real
Here-
quick, when did they open the golf course back up?
May 1st.
May 1st.
Okay, that's what I want to be sure.
The issue here is I'm just make sure I'm clear, Bob, before we go any further and ask for any more information before the next meeting. The budget numbers that are on here are the numbers that were provided by Casper month by month, which lead to their objective by
Yes,
the
sir.
end of the year,
Correct?
which is a total of a loss of $150,000. So
Yes, sir.
their budget number that they had is $4,000 positive for this month of May, is what they estimated, correct? So they're ahead by so many dollars. What I think is being asked for is simply what is the, in 3 lines, what's the revenue, what's the expense, what's the net, right off the page from Casper, month by month, what it is that they are expecting to do. Regardless of what went on years past, reality is I want to see the path to that 150. Because we need to be able to make a decision by the fall, as you well know, as to whether or not they're on track to their budget expectation or not. So we will do that work and we will make it available.
And I hope that would be quickly. Because if we had these numbers in any reasonable amount of time, I would have already seen this. I would have already been able to ask the question, and I would already have the answer right now. But we didn't.
Just as an FYI, we're going to back up a little bit. When we do yacht club budget, we have to break down month by month, labor, cost of goods, what we expect to do in revenue. Certain months are high, certain months are low. Obviously, the summertime, there are higher months in the revenue. Winter
We
months
expect
are
Casper
low.
to be doing the same.
We did not expect, we did the same thing for
Okay.
Casper. You're aware of it because
Yeah.
we discussed it at length. As a matter of fact, you all invited Casper in because you didn't believe their numbers, and we went in great detail over it. You heard it specifically from them.
Yes, we did.
So there's nothing hidden here,
No.
and we're not trying to hide it.
Didn't say there was.
These numbers are baked in based on what was provided and approved.
Agreed.
End result, we've outperformed what we had budgeted for this particular month. It is a good thing.
Yes.
As far as I can, it's a good thing if in fact all of the other numbers hold up. I mean, because there's a tremendous amount of makeup that's got to be done to be able to even hit that negative 150,000. And by the way, if you go to the webpage and look at the budgets there, you don't have a month by month, which I did as a quick check before I came over. Now, did I pull out my budget book, the huge thing, and go through it? No, I didn't.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, though, I'm asking right now. I just need a simple page that shows, or I can go into my budget book and verify
No
that this
problem.
month by month. Please.
Okay.
No issue.
No, we've
I get it,
already-
please.
We're moving on to the other issue. I would like to go back to the marina. And specifically, we started selling fuel when in May?
June, well, it was very end of May,
End of
first week
May.
of June, 3rd, 3 June.
Yeah,
If I
it
remember
was actually past May, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Five-
Zero revenue.
You had
Five.
zero revenue.
It was June something.
That's correct.
Fuel was zero, okay.
If you recall, during the budget process, I did express concern about sales.
Oh, you did.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
We good?
Yeah.
All right, the next thing I want to cover. County funding numbers that were asked for. Here's a copy of the letter the county sent to us, and I give the dollar amounts momentarily. How are you doing? There's the half smile. Sorry to hear that. All right, some numbers, just so you know. And this is the letter we received from the county. $459,000 in police grants, $48,000 in fire grants, and $55,557 in road maintenance. So,
Just for the specifics, the 19% I quoted does not include the fire department differential. I only counted those dollars that come directly to us.
so to repeat it, $459,500, $48,000 to fire, $53,557 road maintenance. So that was
Last year's numbers were 450 or 4,
35 for, or 35 or 36 for the fire. Tom, I don't remember, it was 4 or 450, it
I
was
think it
4,
was 30
I'm sorry?
for the rest, if I remember.
Okay.
Pretty sure the total was 450.
In all it was
All in all,
450 in
450.
total, so we've exceeded that,
Oh, yeah.
pretty significant.
62, 63,000.
Bob, before you walk away from that one for
Yes,
a
sir.
second. In the third point, the road maintenance funding, the last sentence says payments shall be based upon a calculation of the Ocean Pines road mileage as a percentage of total road mileage in Worcester County, for which highway user revenues are received.
Yes.
Those highway user revenues are passed from the federal government through the state government to the county. Am I correct?
From the state to the
State
county.
to the county.
Yes,
So
sir.
the state gets them from wherever they can get them from. Do we know that, in fact, I mean, the way it reads, I'm very pleased by the way it reads, in that we're being treated exactly equally with the rest of the county, which is kind of a major step forward for Ocean Pines. But I don't know that funds are being set aside for specific roads by the state. Example, Route 50 maintenance, Ocean Highway maintenance in Ocean City, or things like that.
Right.
Do you have any indication that there's any reason to believe that that in fact it's not an equal distribution across the board?
I have no reason to believe that. The county has X miles of roads. We have a percentage of that.
Yeah.
They take, the formula is basically what they get from the state for the county roads. The percentage we get is based on our percentage of roads as compared to the county. They just divide it up by percentage based on the miles of roads throughout.
Good.
So there's no reason to believe there's any.
Well, it's a major step forward for us. I just say thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I was under the impression that last year for the police protection, we received 400,000, not 450.
Yeah, we got 400 last year.
Was it?
It was only 400 last year.
So, in other words, instead of the increase of 9,500, we actually had a 5950.
That's correct.
Okay, because this doesn't correct that, this letter. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because we received more than what they said in the letter.
Wait, say that again? We received more than.
This is a typo.
Somebody
It's a
missed
typo in
five.
the letter.
They're saying, yes, they missed a 50,000 typo on this letter.
They
left
put
the 5 out.
9,500 instead of
They
59.
left the 5 out. Should say 59,000.
This number, if we got 400,000, it increased by 59,500.
Okay.
That's all.
Right.
Somebody just didn't,
They left out a 5.
they left out.
As long as we get the money, we're okay.
We're gonna get it.
That's a typo, okay.
Probably the most important 5 in the number.
That's a very important
Very
part.
important. Okay, next thing I want to cover, capital improvement plan. We discussed putting one together. What we did, if you remember, this is building off of the rack and stack we did, all the work leading up to prioritizing our facilities, our infrastructure here in the community. As we sat down and started to go through that, a question came up was, hey, let's, the board had asked to come back in June and put together a plan of how we're going to move forward when it relates to our facilities, maintenance, infrastructure, all those components. What we did was we sought out and we started building our plan. Plan started with, the easiest thing to do was go look at the October 12 rack and stack and just start throwing numbers at it and saying, okay, if we do an average calculation based on building costs, those type things, here's the new rack and stack. But that's not really a plan. That's just, again, projecting forward what we think we might spend on facilities, over the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 further out. We realize that's probably not the best way to do a capital improvements plan. We need to get a little more process into what we do so we can not only validate, we can also demonstrate the necessity for the improvements, why they're needed or not needed, back it up, number of steps through that process. So what we did was we decided to divide the capital improvement plan into 2 separate phases. Phase 1, which is what I'm bringing you today, okay, is a 3-step process from master planning, capital improvement planning, as well as maintenance planning. Maintenance is a big part of the community that we've just missed over the years. We've done it, but it's typically doing it on an as-needed, more on as-needed than trying to be too far ahead of it. So we've tried to back up a little bit. Jerry, when we added Jerry, in the fall last year, it helped us a whole lot looking at how we're going to handle maintenance, how we're going to maintain the facilities that this one is a fairly new one, the new yacht club coming online. We're spending a lot of money. We need to make sure we're maintaining those. So in this packet that I just handed to you, you're going to find there's a defined acquisition process that's broken into 4 phases. You're also going to see a capital improvement planning process. Phase 2, which we're going to bring back to you in September, and again, it's with board approval, development of the near term 0 to 2, midterm 2 to 5, and long-term 5 and beyond. The rack and stack becomes, I'm not going to say less important because it's very important, but we need to know the process which is leading us to that point. So that's going to come right behind this. Planning overview, and again, I'm not going page by page in there. I'm giving you a kind of a synopsis of what you've been handed. There are no action items today. The board asked for a CIP. I'm presenting it to you. It's a rather lengthy document, a lot of reading. So it's just for you guys to take a look at, go through it, mark it up. If there's any questions, obviously we'll circulate back and forth with it and come to agreement that this makes sense for everybody. Included in there, the master plan. The master plan incorporates a detailed analysis to provide the required information to make decisions for fiscal development of facilities for the community. And again, the master planning is part of the inclusive of the CIP. Again, I'm hitting a real high-level overview on this because I'd be here 6 hours going page by page, okay? Capital investment plan, that portion is in there where it organizes capital budgets dealing with large non-recurring expenditures. We do have an area in there that I want to make sure we point out. There's a difference between the items that are funded, equipment, vehicles, those type things that come out of the historical, and looking at major capital projects. The primary purpose of this plan is our major capital projects and infrastructure. Yacht club, country club, roads, bridges, those type of items. And then the last part of the 3-step plan that you have also puts an organized plan to accomplish the maintenance, repair, and ongoing sustainability for each of our facilities based on their current condition, and in this case the yacht club, and it's ongoing once we put the new one up, how we're going to maintain that, the regular scheduled maintenance, those type of items. 4 steps that are identified in there is the project identification. Okay, the first thing is how do you identify what projects need to be addressed, what order they need to be in so we can do our rack and stack. From there, we'll go through the process of the pre-systems acquisition, which is basically getting the project approved, getting the project funded, any state, local, federal applications we need, that all falls into the pre-acquisition. Then the system acquisition part of it is when we're actually going through the project's been awarded, projects underway, and then the cost, the scheduling, ongoing, till we get to the actual end where we have a new product or we've remodeled whatever we've done at that point, and then we pulled it back into the operational mode where the maintenance begins. So there's 4 phases it's broken down to. And again, you're going to get a lot more detail when you read through that. The other thing that we also wanted to make sure we covered in here was we talk about not just the major capital items, but our current budgeting process for the ongoing items, which include the September through November, where we're building the budgets for the capital needs based on the individual departmental needs. That gets baked into the budget, which is presented in January. At that point, each and every year moving forward, we will have an updated CIP. It's a living document at that point. And we'll see what capital projects, both large and small, are coming up because they'll meet the budget for that year. Example, the yacht club straddles 2 years because of the size and scope of the project. That would be determined, as we did last year, in previous year's budget process. So we've covered process in here for the budget. We went back and redefined the campus concept: beach club campus, country club campus, Mankato Meadows sports course, swim and racquet, a White Horse and Yacht Club. We did add an additional campus you'll see in there, which is the OP Community Campus. It picks up all the other properties. Public Works is a good example. That's something a little bit separate than Mankato Meadows, because although it's located right next to, we treat it differently when we look at the allocation of the resources. So we've added that as just a catch-all when we're talking about the campus focus. 5-year plan of integrated priorities are in there. What we did include in the last 3 to 4 pages, okay, are schedules. Those schedules and those numbers, okay, you've received them already in several ways. Some are in your 5-year funding at the end of your budget book, okay? Some have been included in this year's budget when we went through it. FYI, the FY 2014. So there are a number of pieces in there. We did not add or change those. What we did was just for the purpose of getting this document to you with the process in mind. If we start adding the numbers to it, it would further, we felt, go a little too deep into it. We need to make sure our process is good. Once we've got our process identified, we'll go back and start updating those numbers, which is what we'd like to bring back to you in the September board meeting.
So basically, pages 15 through 18 are examples based on already reported numbers.
Current information.
The update for these numbers would come in September.
Correct.
Just making sure I understand.
In October 12, we gave the 0 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 and beyond. We included those, and we didn't, if you remember the chart that they were on, it was just in an Excel spreadsheet. Here, we actually graph it out based on when we think the expenditure is going to be, so we have a better understanding from a budgeting process. Moving forward, as we update those items, they will be updated in that type of format, so we can predict and look forward with higher levels of predictability of what our expenditures will be. I think any other highlights, so I don't go too deep for you guys.
So a lot to read here.
What's that?
I wouldn't go any deeper.
Okay.
Okay, so the pages at the end are going to ultimately affect a possibly reorganized rack and stack of when things need to be done based on assessments that are continuing to go on, or?
Yeah, we could have racked and stacked just like we did 2 years ago, just like we did last year. But what's our process moving forward so we have more predictability built in? This covers that predictability not only with the acquisition, but through the construction process. Once we acquire it, it's turned over and we start to maintain it long term, and then what future projects may be. So it's a process from identifying what needs to be done to meeting that requirement and how it fits in with funding with everything else we have.
Well, obviously we all need plenty of time to read this, Dave.
Yeah, we've had high expectations for this, and I haven't read it, and certainly I can't comment any better than anybody else here can. But I'd like to move that we table any discussion on what we've just been handed, and call a special meeting in the very near future after we've all had a chance to read it, to discuss it.
I have no objection to
Is it a
I need a
motion?
second.
That's a motion.
It's a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. President, a little discussion on that motion for a moment.
Sure.
No, it's been moved and said second.
I know I certainly have a couple of questions that I need answers for today that are really simple. So before we put it on the table, can we take one pass around the room and just answer any of those questions? example.
Sure.
I have the authority of tabling that motion for right now, so I have, so ask your questions.
Thank you. Bob, first of all, thank you very much for taking this on. I think it's extraordinarily important for the community to be able to see over a 10-year window what is in Ocean Pines, what needs help, what doesn't need help, and roughly how much it's going to cost. As you know from our discussions on this, my intent was once we got to a plan that the board could approve, we would actually figure out some version of that to take to the community as a referendum and say, all right, here's what the community's going to need over the next 10 years, just to signify that you know what it's all about, yes or no. That having been said as a general comment, a specific request for somebody who got a lot older yesterday, along with Ray, who did it on the same day.
Aye.
Yeah, thank you. For those of us who have trouble seeing, you got charts in here with green type on them and blue background type on them, where the numbers are absolutely illegible. Can you change that so I can read it?
We can give you the charts. If you
Big
read,
print.
well, if you notice the heading, if you read the heading on top, it tells you what it is, and if you go in your budget book, it's there, but we can certainly make those larger. And
Please don't make me go to more, I mean,
No, there's three of them.
I came in ready for a long
Yeah,
discussion.
no, they're for informational purposes, just so you know that we were looking at those, we carried it out, but be happy to make those in
Get
bigger
a
print.
little lighter green.
Not a problem.
Yeah, just so we can read the type. And again, thank you, Mr. President. That's all I wanted to
That's all you want to say? Okay. I will now,
Maybe.
Wait, are we all gonna get a shot at asking a simple question?
go right ahead.
In this, maybe I'm just not seeing it, but in the maintenance part here, do we direct funds to drainage?
All
Ongoing
items,
drainage maintenance, because I don't see it. I see road with paving, and roads used to be roads drainage.
there's a budgetary item for drainage in the back, which is something that we budget. I didn't highlight, again, this is where we took the October 12 information and put it into the formatting so we can all have some agreement that we agree with the formatting for forecasting purposes. We didn't add anything new, and I do not believe specific example section 3 drainage was one of the capital improvement items that were on that initial list. So I hope that answers the question.
I don't see drainage on the list.
If it wasn't on the original list, it would not be on there.
It's up there in green and blue, you just can't read it.
Yeah. I might not read it in black and white inside here.
Okay, before we get too deep into this thing, this is a working document. It's the first shot. We will take time to
Gotcha.
read this, and there's all kinds of questions, I'm sure, that we might want to add to it, that we might want to do. At this point, I'm going to resurface the motion to table any further discussion on this till we can call a special meeting. I'll call the question on that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Bob, as an associate not about this report, but one of the things that we just, as we all know, just got through going through was a period of time at the end of a fiscal year when work that might have been done in a previous fiscal year was not finished due to whatever reasons. And the work was going to carry over into a new fiscal year. One of the issues, Terry, that I would like you and others to look into, because I know in my background, major projects like that budgetarily could be put into an escrow approach where you could carry over the approved dollars of a budget from previous years so we don't run into what we ran into last time. And that may not be the only time that may happen to us. I just want to look at that to see if in fact that would be a reasonable adjustment for Ocean Pines to make. Because that may not be, it probably isn't going to be the last time we have a project that isn't finished by the end of a capital year and the budget is there. And I know, again, my background, where I came from, you could identify those kinds of larger projects and say, I want to carry over the dollars.
Yeah, we have a lot of seasonal
We have
things
a
that
lot of
happen
seasonal
because
things,
of.
so if you would look into that, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, Bob, what is,
Can I ask something before we go on? There is some feedback, and I don't know where it's coming from. Is it bothering anybody else? Okay, are you hearing it? Is there some way we can adjust the microphones? It's really piercing. For those of us that can hear it, Dan.
No one
Ray.
hears it, no one hears it but you.
I may be the only one.
No, I saw a hand go up in the back.
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback.
Sharon, I heard it.
Thank you.
I turned it
Okay.
down. Yeah, I heard it. I turned it down a little bit earlier. See if that
Dogs
helps.
are all
Thank you.
barking outside, so, okay. So what do we have here?
These are the updated Gantt charts that you had requested to be provided monthly on the current projects. So this will match up or go hand in hand with previous month's Gantt charts. Another one, big print. Dan, you ought to be able to read these.
Thank you.
All right, these are the
That's presumptive that I can understand it.
That's on you. It's third month I've handed them out. All right, that's the update Gantt chart, so you can track the work. That's what we're using to track the work. I'll give you some narrative on it. Some items that have occurred since the last time we spoke about it. Fuel tanks have been moved, fuel lines have been relocated, fuel services backing up at the marina. Pool equipment room pad and ramps have been poured. Pool equipment room masonry walls have been completed. New swimming pool is framed out, concrete poured, and it was actually sprayed, the gunite, and backfilled and graded. If you didn't see that process, you missed something. We tried to get some pictures we put up on the website. It was pretty cool to watch them do it. The contractor actually, they got in about 7 that morning, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and they worked until about 11:15 that night. to make
There was some of us there Monday evening.
So they made sure it was all with the same pour, the same spray. It really was a neat process to watch. Pretty exciting. New building pad area has been graded and compacted for the new site of the club. New parking lot area has been cleared and graded. New grease trap elevations have been determined, currently being installed this week. Footers for the new building will begin later this week or early next week. Things that we can look forward to are the footers going in, complete upgrade to the MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, pour the slab for the new building, and masonry work will begin. So all those is what we can expect to see in the coming weeks. So a lot going on down there. Pretty excited about it. Let's see, other things. I have a meeting on Saturday with the Osprey Point folks. They've had a lot of calls, obviously, with the tree removal. We were very, very careful, went out multiple times, checking the property lines. We're well within where we need to be. Ms. Ford, who's the Osprey Point condo president, has been great to work with. She's got a number of folks that have been very, very good to work with. What else? The backfilling, and Jerry, did you see today where they're backfilling up against? Yeah, you'll see in the next day or so they'll start to backfill. They shot the concrete. It's hardened up. They'll take the bracing out or the molds that the framing. Then they backfill that. The dirt comes right up to it. They level that off. They start the coping and they start the diamond bright finish, which is the white finish that goes in the pool. So you should start to see all that within the next week. So if you haven't been out to look at it, go take a look at the pool. It's actually pretty neat. They did, all the corners have radiuses on them, so they have a nice smooth radius around the edges. Stairs were expanded a little bit. There's a little seat at one end near the stair area. That's where we find a lot of people like to sit in the pool, so they put a small seating element right at that corner, so because a lot of people sit there and you can't get by them. Now we have plenty of room for that.
Could you clarify what you mean by the seating area? Because it's been a question
With the
that
pool?
I had. Yes. Where is that exactly?
When you know where the stairs are?
Yes.
If you're back to Ocean City and you're coming down the stairs, there's just, for lack of better, the best way to understand, think of a step that extends to the left along the wall.
To the left?
Mhm.
To the,
In the pool.
in the pool,
In the pool.
close to where the tiki bar is, that side?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's not very far. It's probably 6 feet in length.
Okay.
And it's just a lot of people like to sit on the stairway there and prevent or it makes it hard for people coming in and out of the pool. By having that additional element there, it provides more seating for folks that like to sit in the pool and be out of the way of the stairwell.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Can you break the code for us?
No.
What are the colors? What do the colors mean? I mean, I got colors, I got no.
Green is start, red is to be completed. That's the anticipated completion date or time.
Red is completion anticipated.
When that part is anticipated to be completed.
What's yellow?
I think I gave you any, oh, I did. Yellow would be where we run it, where we're, something's delayed for whatever reason, it goes to yellow. It's not on time, so it goes to yellow. So example, the site work, we had a little delay getting started, so it's delayed. Where I'm looking at the Yacht Club project integrated schedule. We're talking about phase 1 for the pool. Okay, it's the big one. 628 was when we're anticipating to have that completed. It wasn't, so we're in the yellow because we're past the original anticipated date. So now we're in that. That's why we identified yellow, so we know where we're having time overruns.
So, just for my information, you gave us two big sheets that headed the same thing. Yacht Club project integrated schedule. Yacht Club project integrated schedule. The first one is as you planned it. The second one is the actual where we're staying at.
Yeah, if you look in the upper right-hand corner,
Upper right has the date.
Sir?
Upper right has the
the upper
date.
right-hand corner, there's the
Yeah,
date.
4/1/14 and
No.
6/25/13.
Right.
So
This
that's,
is the
this
total
is
project.
6/25/13 is where we are today.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sure that
And the other thing that I'm looking at, Bob, if I may, while I'm asking here, folks, is on the 6/25/13 schedule, where I see us in the yellow being past our originally planned dates a bit. I see below that I don't have start dates and completion dates. So you are telling us that the delays are going to affect the rest of the schedule by the blank triangles at the ends of the bars. That's the way Gantt chart is supposed to look, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, they're broken down into different phases and different
We're not at the date yet.
different
so-
portions of the project. Top one is an example, phase 1, pool deck marina. Just kind of going down, that whole phase 1 covers that area. Demo and site work, pool construction, deck and pumps, fuel tanks moved.
Okay.
That,
We're not to these dates yet, so they won't have a green in there.
Do you?
Still confused about that number up at the
phase
top.
2 is on scale.
Yeah, but that's anticipated, that's planned.
It won't turn green, Dan, until the date.
Until it actually starts.
Now, the-
And that,
Yeah.
and if it's that date or date after.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I got it.
And this number changed.
I'll ask again next month.
It's not what he gave us.
No, this is the long range, 414. You notice it's 4/1/14.
Well, that's for next year.
Total project. That's the long range plan.
Why wasn't it 13?
This is,
So you're saying 14 is next year?
14's next year, and that's the long range, all in, everything. This gives the current construction progress of where each individual component is.
Now I get it, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Target completion date for the project, according to the Gantt chart forecast, dated 4/1/14, is March 18th, 2014.
625, that gives you a date.
However, that's not the current chart. The current
chart
progress
doesn't show
chart does not show that.
It does.
It shows plan.
It doesn't have any red or green in it.
It shows plan, but we don't know because in fact the date's not.
Don't know yet, Joe.
Oh, yeah, the completion date.
Of the pool, we did, that's why they're
No,
yellow.
no, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the yacht club out here. You had it completed on 3/14 the last time we talked.
Okay.
That's, yeah, well, that's my birthday. So now it's 3/18, you ain't getting a party.
We'll try to do your birthday.
Try to make your birthday.
No
weekend.
party.
Put that in the minutes, please, Michelle.
We will take these charts and try to decipher them. But one question I have at this point, Bob, which you're not going to be able to answer now, is on the 4/1/14 schedule, everything had a red triangle on the right as a projected end date. On the 6/25/13, they either have changed the nomenclature or the coloring scheme because there are no red triangles at the end as fixed. They're now white, they're blank in color. I don't know if that means anything or anything.
Okay, they're underway.
No, that's not my question. The question is on the end date, it says 3/18. On 4/1, it said 3/18 with a red triangle. On 6/25, it says 3/18 with a white triangle. Does that make any difference?
No, the work under the white triangle, all right, let's go to one just for understanding purposes. Let's look at the pool construction. Okay, I'm looking at 6/25/13 using your sheet.
The newest one.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, the top one is demo site work. Supposed to start 3/29, supposed to be finished 6/28. We had delays getting started, so that's where the yellow, and that's where the arrows have changed. Okay? They're in progress, we're delayed on it. Pool construction, the anticipated start was in April, which we met, or we didn't meet, but that's why the extension on the other end is in yellow. The red was supposed to be the completion, but we didn't meet that date.
Okay.
So it's still open. The ones that are in white still are not clear. We haven't hit the date yet. So we don't know if we've met it, we've passed it, we're going on forward with it. Jerry, you can jump in.
Okay. The graph with the red triangles is a planning document only. That's the goal. The second chart is an actual chart. As soon as something occurs that makes the planned decision point late, it turns yellow.
Turns yellow, okay.
If nothing has occurred to make that endpoint late, it's blank. That means it's on schedule.
Okay.
Everything is
Thank you.
operating according to plan.
All right,
But the red on the 4/14 is completion.
That means it's complete.
okay, thank you. That
That
helps
makes
me
sense.
understand.
Thank you. That's why you get the big bucks, because you can explain.
Why you're here,
that
Jerry.
stuff.
Lot to study here.
All right, next topic, can I keep moving?
Yes.
Next topic to cover, just as an update, Chesapeake ESG Sandpiper. Okay, you all know Chesapeake ESG, Chesapeake Utility bought Eastern Shore Gas. The new entity is Sandpiper. Information's been out on it. Some things that are coming up, just to keep the board aware. They met with the county, gave a presentation to the county on where they are and those type of things. They're going to come in. I've asked them to come in at our next board meeting, and with your permission, I'll put it on make sure we put it on the agenda, where they'll give us an update based on where they are currently. Right now, administratively, what they're working through is now that the deal's been done, they're acquiring the ESG employees, onboarding them. They're also converting all of us as ESG customers and all of ESG's previous customers, putting all of us into their system. We should see the billing come from the new company with our next billing cycle. One of the things that is anticipated is the billing rate to be down a little bit or a little less expensive because of the way that they structured the deal. However, because this is the time of the year when the high use is up with the AC units and everything else, it may be a push for us. But you should see a reduction per cubic unit of gas fuel. They're also currently working on the two main connections on 113 and one down in right here, 589 and 113 and 1 Berlin. They're working on the applications to make the connections for those mains so they can come down 589 so they can cross in the Berlin area. Conversion process will not take place until the end of this year, the beginning of next year. I had someone come in last week and say they're starting in August. Not according to Chesapeake, and I follow up, I speak with them pretty regular. They're not there yet. They are speaking with some contractors as they're part of their gearing up so it's out there, but they're not ready to start any of the conversion process. And they will come in over the next 60 to 90 days and do several town hall meetings separate from our board meeting to update our membership on where we stand with the conversion, the process, how it'll work, how it won't work, things we can look forward to, things that we need to be concerned about.
Do they understand half our customers don't live here?
They have I can't speak for them, I don't know.
We ought to be sure they know, because town hall meetings won't work for people living in.
Last thing, again, not last, I already said that we'll have someone attend our next board meeting, if it's okay with you all, and have them give us a presentation. Any questions about that?
Yes. One.
Sure.
We have been getting, as you know, letters to the board from other companies who are not affiliated with the current pipeline structure under Ocean Pines. Now, I'm assuming that the franchise agreement deals strictly with the pipeline distribution of propane.
Yes, sir.
So that those people who do not have pipeline distribution on propane can still discuss their needs with competing companies without violating the franchise or otherwise getting in the way. I'm also assuming that down the road, Sandpiper will be looking at the feasibility of completely piping Ocean Pines, assuming that we're going to convert to natural gas. And I trust that that's a question we can bring up with them at our next meeting that we bring them in. In other words, there are sections in Ocean Pines that do not have underground gas utilities in them. Sections 1, 2, and 3, I believe, do not. I don't know about the south side of Ocean Pines. So I would assume that the people who live in those sections who use propane now with underground tanks or with above ground tanks in storage facilities or whatever it is, can in fact compete for price with vendors who are willing to sell them propane at a lower price than Sandpiper might on a fill-to-tank basis. I'm also assuming that Sandpiper would provide the fill-to-tank service to those who want to continue it based upon ESG's customer list that they acquired. Been wrong yet on any of this stuff?
Everything you've said is what they've covered in their meetings. They had a big meeting at Stephen Decatur High School last month. A number of us attended, and yes, everything you're saying is what was spoke about there. And again, that's why if you have a list of questions, we can certainly forward it to them.
Dan, the only thing I would add to your list is that, as we know, under some justifiable level of contention, we extended the contract for ESG. There is no guarantee that the next right to use our pathways will be limited to one supplier. I'm not saying that somebody's going to want to come in and put a competing network in, but there's nothing anywhere that says 6 months from now we might not want to take sections of Ocean Pines that do not have network in them, and if Sandpiper now, if they don't want to build to those areas, I'm for one, I'm not going to be in favor of creating a relationship that blocks other companies coming in unless the one we have a relationship with agrees to provide service to everybody in Ocean Pines.
Thank you. That's where I was trying to get.
Over the next 6 months, we'll be negotiating all of that back and forth at some point at least. I will begin the process. Whether I end it or not will be determined in the election. But we will begin that process now because I don't want parts of Ocean Pines who currently, as you know, are not piped to sit there and not have an opportunity to get. So that's part of what we're going to be negotiating over the next 6 months.
Thank you.
Matt? This all needs really close examination.
Oh, no doubt.
But ESG is well, effectively, ESG is now merging with Chesapeake, if that's not already accomplished.
Actually, ESG was bought out by Chesapeake.
Bought out by Chesapeake.
Was bought out by them.
And
Changed
so
their name.
So we have one contract. We have a contract right now with the ESG that gives them a right of way. That's not the right word. Gives them easements.
Yeah, it's correct. They have easement to use the right.
And allows them to, gives them as I read it, at any rate, an exclusive franchise. At the same time, my word is exactly his franchise.
Yeah, for the next 6 months, that's true.
Well, no, not for the next 6 months. It was for the last 20 years.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying,
and
looking forward.
and
yeah.
the next 6 months. I don't know, what you're saying is somewhat implying that we're going to be able to do something different. And I'm just curious as to how that's going to come about and how much leverage exactly we're going to have, given that they've got the pipes in the ground and given that I don't think somebody else can come in and replace them. So, I don't know. It's just an observation,
Well,
I guess.
just to make sure that, Dave, you understand what the comment I was making, and I believe this is where Dan was leading as well, there are parts of Ocean Pines where the right to use the right-of-way, they didn't build piping. It's not there.
Yeah.
So then when we go into negotiations for allowing them to continue in a longer-term contract, we're going to talk to them about, are you going to build to the areas that they haven't built to yet? And if they aren't going to, then we have, I think, an obligation to keep the door open for somebody who might be willing to come in and do it.
Okay, I'm suggesting that we not raise expectations too much. Certainly you're going to do what you suggest, and as far as we can.
Sure.
But I don't know how much leverage we actually have in doing that. So, anyway,
Yeah,
it all
we'll see.
unfolds.
All right, next topic. I've given you a request for purchase. We put it on two. I could have done them individually and stayed under the 15, but really we need them both. So we just combine them. We get a little better price than we do multiple purchase. But it's for two new Z mowers. The mowers we have are over 5. They were purchased in '08. A lot of hours on them. They get used, and they're pretty much running all the time. We're starting to have some components break and those type of these expensive repairs. So we have a replacement process. So instead of breaking it into two and just buying them individually, we combine them. You notice we budgeted to $20,000 for the acquisition of these. Our recommendation is to buy them at a total cost of $17,600 or $2,400 savings. The bid is in your the competitive bidding for the units are in your hands.
I move to accept the bid.
Second?
Discussion?
Yeah, I must say, look, they fit, they're in budget, they don't have taxes in them though, I don't believe. So you gotta add $1,056. But these bids are over 2 months old. Why do we get this the day of the meeting? Why wasn't this in my package?
I could separate them and do them myself, but as we go through these,
That's not an answer to the question, Bob. Why wasn't this in the package so we could review it before the meeting?
no other reason than they're within budget, they're under. I didn't think there was any issue.
Are there any
with it.
more requests for funding today?
There were not.
But Marty, remember we're gonna have that discussion.
I'm still making my point.
That's
The
fine.
the bids are over 2 months, I think 3 months old. They could easily been in our package Wednesday week.
Probably could have.
It's just the time annexation. That's important.
Okay, any discussions to the point of purchasing or not purchasing? Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right. Next item I was asked to look into, I have no handout for you, waste management. Some questions have come up about trash pickup, both garbage as well as recycle, and the benefit or what challenges it would create, including it in the annual assessment. And we had talked about this prior, we being the staff side, but just to get it on the table here, there's no action item other than you all can decide if we need to move in a different direction. But potential benefits would be, if we put it in the assessment, there's a guaranteed amount to the vendor, in this case it's Chesapeake, so we could have a slightly lower rate.
Chesapeake?
Or, I'm sorry, Waste Management, it used to be Chesapeake. I would also think the other benefit is we do have people that tend to find the commercial dumpsters in the community, and they like to, even though they're posted, don't throw away, you'll get a fine, people tend to still do that. So I would think if it was included in the assessment, they were already paying for it, those two would be potential benefits. Potential challenges that arise. Not every resident subscribes to the trash service. Not every resident wants the trash service. Some like purchasing their own county sticker if you include it in the assessment. We do have a significant portion of our residents that don't live in the community full-time. They're part-time, or they rent, or some other accommodation. So that would have to be considered. And then if we were to include trash collection in the assessment, that additional monies would be the burden on the association to collect and pay. So we would be paying a bill when it comes due annually, or semi-annual, wherever we work out with the trash collection company. But it would be up to us to collect that from the members. It has the potential of increasing some of our delinquencies by having another bill that we have to collect. So I'm just, there's some of the pros and cons. The other issue or area that I was asked to look at, we can renegotiate with Waste Management to do a one-in-one collection. I have spoken to them about, one of the first things we talked about when we were first working with them was the potential of 1 day a week being trash, 1 day being recycled. We didn't come out of the gate with it because, our community was used to 2 days of trash collection. So trying to change that didn't seem like it was a reasonable approach. But you all will have that decision. We can certainly look at it. Their contract takes us through December of 2014. We can approach them. They are willing to consider going to one-in-one. Obviously, there's some benefit to them, but that's a board decision. That's something that's going to have some impact on our memberships, But we have looked at all of those. So yes, they would consider one-in-one, recycle 1 day, trash pick up the other. If anyone's doing both, I know my household, we certainly do a lot more recycle than we do trash. We don't need 2 days a week, but that's us. But there's a lot of other people that live here, so all have been looked at. So they're just discussion items I threw out there. I was asked to look at it.
I want to thank you. Tom. I'm the one who asked this information because there's been a lot of discussion in the newspaper and you get letters and people just talking. And I think a lot of us would agree we have more recycling than we do trash, those of us that do recycle. Was there a difference in cost if we did one-in-one? Do you know that?
It's very similar. There was a slight reduction because they're not running the trash service, but they're increasing the recycle. So it was a very similar.
Very similar then, okay. And then could we modify this mid-contract? Because we said our contract runs to the end of next year.
We could potentially modify. The initial discussions we had, when I say initial, when we initially did the contract, they said they would, if we modified it midstream, they would extend the contract by a year, or whatever, based on wherever we were, they'd like an extension. There's a new management team in place for our area, and I haven't asked them what changes that would mean for contractually yet, because it's something we haven't gotten that far to decide if we are interested in doing it.
And may I just ask a question of the audience? Out of all of you here, we have a great turnout today. Thank you all for being here. How many of you would favor 1 day of recycling and 1 day of trash pickup a week? Just raise your hands if you would. And how many would not? Oh, okay.
If they provided a trash recycling container.
Well, they do provide it.
No, I'm sorry, a trash container.
Or a trash container plus a recycling
Because you
container.
don't get need a bigger container.
Okay.
One of the things, Sharon, about that though is that, I don't know, we kind of like the 2 days a week.
Speak up, David.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The trash, we got the right, recycle doesn't smell. I mean, you have to be more careful. If you skip a week, or a pickup on your normal garbage, even if you put it in, plastic bags, and be careful and everything like that. It's more problematic than, I don't know, that's just one person individually, but I think that would be a concern to me. People go on vacations, they travel. So.
Bob, what I would request you to do, there's one other piece of this here. I go with the contract negotiations again. If Waste Management is going to be guaranteed an income from every residential location in Ocean Pines by, a vote of us to include it in the dues, I would anticipate a cut in rate rather substantially, being that they would then be guaranteed having over 8,000 customers, as opposed to hoping to get that many customers. So that would be another discussion we would need to have. around that. And secondly, I would like you and the staff to make a proposal as to what it is you think really ought to be done, not this second, but perhaps at the next meeting in July. I would like to have a proposal on what you think we really ought to do here after having some discussions with the new waste management.
What would you say ought to be done, from a 1-in-1 or from a?
Whatever you want to propose. I mean, there's lots of options out there, and
Boy, I can see I'm getting hammered on that
we
one,
need
whack-a-mole on that one. All
we
right.
need the staff to make some sort of some sort of option A, option B kind of proposal on what does it all mean, and have a discussion with Waste Management. Sitting here right now, it sounds like one recycle a week and one trash a week makes sense to me, but I'm one person, so I think we need some kind of proposal to work from. After you've talked to the new management of Waste Management, see what the options are.
Doesn't have to be different, though, does
It
it?
doesn't have to be different. No, it doesn't.
Bob, I was going to ask for the same thing. If you want a decision from the board, as you well know, it's got to be something other than let's go talk about this. We have nothing to talk about at this point.
I'm not asking for a decision.
Well, okay, we're asking you to provide
okay.
us
Okay,
with
sure.
something we can go up or down on.
I can do that.
Let's talk about the options, let's put some numbers behind the options, let's look at what the potential negotiation is, and what the potential outcomes might be, and then we can make an intelligent decision. And there are a couple of other reasons that fall in there that are factors that you're aware of, that we have to consider. I mean, there are people who live in areas that actually have trees where leaves drop on the ground, and they have to get those removed or picked up. That's an issue with how many times they pick up trash or how many times they pick up recycling. There's several others like that go along, and particularly the one where, I don't know what our last survey showed or our last look showed, but I think that we're looking at, out of the 8,447 properties in Ocean Pines, something like 4,000 are not full-time residents, and 12,000 people now who are full-time residents. But that's 2 point something per household, or about 6,000 households. We've still got a couple thousand people that don't live here, who may not want to get involved in something like this.
Again, I think
We need some hard facts to make decisions on.
thank you for looking into it, because we did ask you to do that, and now we're asking for
May I ask
More,
that,
please.
Bob, may I ask that whatever you propose, you give it to us a few days in advance, so my wife can tell me what to do.
Now, there is a reasonable request.
That is reasonable.
All right, Bob, there you go.
Two other things. I've been meeting with a couple of alternative fuel source people, solar in particular. I'm getting some solar proposals. I have one that I've met with a couple of the folks putting it together on several occasions. I've asked them to put the proposal together in a binder for each of you to look at. I get these almost weekly. Someone's coming wanting to do something along those lines. This one seems at least reasonable for consideration, so I'm going to elevate it. I've asked them to provide the same thing they gave to me in multiple copies. I'll get it to you all to start taking a look at, so we can decide if it's even something we're interested in or not. Okay? Last thing I want to cover very briefly, one of the areas of interest was for drainage, was St. Martin's area, and we looked at the drainage under the road, and the challenge is there are main utilities that run down the road, so that's why the piping is where it is right now. We looked at consideration of going down St. Martin's out to Beecham Road. We looked at running behind the properties, getting utility easement to go behind the folks' property there, just to provide another outlet. We've been working with Mr. Presock at the county, and just give you documentation we're working on. The moving a drain from its current location across, or adding the additional drain out to Beecham Road is not a good potential solution because of the elevation. So I'm just trying to keep you all in the loop of everything we're looking at. So we've asked Mr. Presock to provide a letter explaining why he felt it wasn't. Head of Public Works went out and surveyed it with them in the whole 9.5 yards, and that was the result. There's not enough drop. So, just so everybody knows, we are still working on those. That is it for me, unless you have any other questions.
Marty?
I'm sorry, I thought we were having a quarterly financial report today. I mean, the last one we had was February, and by my calendar, we've gone way by it. Am I right or am I wrong? I mean, I certainly brought it to Terry's attention, or his treasurer, I brought it to the president's attention. We have a duty to review, we got last year's numbers here, we haven't even discussed them. Everybody looking at me. I mean, are we going to do quarterly reports, or are we just going to ignore the bylaws and the resolutions?
I believe that is going to be part of our discussion, Terry Moore, under the new business. And we
So up until then, we're going to continue to ignore the bylaws and not discuss it. That's okay. I mean, we ignore the bylaws and everything else. Might as well ignore it on that too.
It is a bylaw requirement. I mean, it's as simple as that. The board chooses not to enforce the bylaw requirement, then so be it.
Sharon, 45th anniversary.
Let's talk about something happy. We're going to celebrate, okay? Ocean Pines is in our 45th anniversary, and for the month of August, we're going to be doing multiple things. And do you have copies for me? You got some around here? Got one? You have it. Okay. Okay. What we're going to be doing is Ocean Pines is trying to incorporate all of the activities that we have and feature them sometime during the month. So, for example, one day in August, we're looking at working in conjunction with the Arts and Crafts Festival and doing a concert there with the Honeycombs. It's the 45th anniversary. We're thinking the music at that time was in the 60s. The Honeycombs, it's kind of a cool combination. So there's going to be a special concert in conjunction with the Arts and Crafts Festival. They came to talk to us. They wanted to work something together. And that's August 3rd. And August 8th, at the Yacht Club, there's going to be a 45th celebration poolside pig roast and a concert by the Jimmy Charles Band at the Yacht Club and Marina from 4 to 10 o'clock. The golf course is working on doing some sort of celebration that has not been firmed up yet. They're thinking of options, perhaps a free range day for range balls, or no cart fees day, or happy hour social on the patio with music. They're just not sure what they're going to be doing yet, but they're working on something with the golf course. On August 20th, they're doing a celebration with the aquatics program with free swim day at the 4 Ocean Pines pools, starting from 10 o'clock to close. On the 22nd of August, there's going to be a 45th birthday party with free ice cream and or super cakes type of thing at the park, BYOB, which means basket of goodies if you want to have a picnic. There's going to be an overtime band playing, kids' activities, and hot dogs by the Kiwanis groups. So again, more groups are getting involved with this, and that'll be from 7 to 8:30. On August 23rd, there's going to be a 45th anniversary Jamaican beach party at the Beach Club with Kayla Brown, volleyball games, and a theme buffet on the second floor of the Beach Club with our new air conditioning that we'll have hooked up by then, and that'll be from 2 to 6 o'clock. On August 25th, in conjunction with the Ocean Pines Chamber, they're going to be doing a classic car show at the Veterans Memorial Park with DJ and food vendors, and that'll run from 11 to 2. They're also trying to incorporate some sort of parade down the parkway and some part of the parkway with these classic cars. And the 25th of August will be an anniversary celebration at the Racket Complex. There'll be a block party, a showcase of facilities, free ice cream, and a DJ from 5 to 7. And there may be more events coming on. And I really want to thank Teresa, because she has really, really worked hard on this and putting these things together. So thank you, Teresa. More to be coming. I think it's going to be a fun month. There'll be a lot of things going out in our papers, I'm sure, and on our e-blasts and things like that. And It's great to see all the clubs getting involved, including the chamber, our tennis group, our golf group, our aquatics group. So I think it's going to be a fun month.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
The one thing you left out of your report,
What's that?
budget, Monday.
It's not going to cost anything, it's all free.
Okay. That's on tape and it's gonna be in the minutes. It's no problem.
Okay.
And you're picking
No,
up the
we
difference,
have-
right?
Oh, of course, just write a check.
Absolutely.
Okay, bingo.
No, we have a budget for this.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for cheering us all up with that, Sharon, reminding us how old we all are.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sharon, and good work again, Teresa, and everybody's pulling that together. And looks like a very extensive activity. Good deal. Okay, public comment. Go. Good afternoon. There's a microphone. Okay.
It's on, it's Joe's. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. Lost all road. Thank you, Pete. Sports Core Mortgage is an item on the agenda. I have no personal feelings one way or the other whether we should pay off that mortgage or not. I would only remind this board of directors that when a past board of directors, in their wisdom and knowledge, voted to build cover on the pool with over $1 million, no referendum and non-budgeted, there was a lot of debate about where the money would come from. And the past board of directors decided to split it in half, put $500,000 in a mortgage, or not a mortgage, I guess, but a loan.
The loan.
With the proviso, as I recall, that the principal and interest on that would be covered by the aquatics membership. So I would simply ask that if you're going to pay it off, that's your decision. That you also look at fulfilling a prior board's promise to the membership that the membership itself in total would not be paying that $500,000, but the full members. As we specified. That's all on video if you want to look at it. Second item I want to mention was golf. I think one of the problems we have here is, lately anyway, is setting expectations way beyond what they should do. I'll give you an example related to golf. At a town hall meeting, and I believe at the one of the board meetings subsequent to May 1st, it was said, several people said they were really excited about the turnaround in golf. Excited. One board member pointed to big crowds over there for a particular event. I'd like to hear more phrases like cautiously optimistic than really excited about the turnaround of golf. The May numbers are only 1 month. The fact of the matter is that the discount last year when the place was essentially closed down, as Marty Clark said, when you take the average income, positive net, for many years prior to last year, you're getting up around $50,000 or $60,000 a year positive. This month in May, it was 11,000 or so. I don't see that as anything to get excited about. We might be optimistic that it's going to get a lot better, but I think we need to control a little bit our optimism financially. Bob presented today the May financials. Maybe I missed it, but I tend to attend most board meetings. I don't recall, and this is the first time in 20 years, I don't recall the board of directors never discussing the year-end financial reports. We didn't do it today. Maybe it's planned for later in the year. Obviously, the numbers are out, but this board has not even decided to discuss them. Maybe you only discuss what the general manager decides you're going to discuss. I'm not sure. County money. It's a positive, certainly, that we received approximately $60,000 or so more money. But let's not fool ourselves that this is, some people might think this is extremely good news. About $7 per lot, which is great. But in point of fact, it's $60,000. I believe, and most of that was police. We also asked for money in a number of other areas, and we were refused. So this, while it is positive, it's not something for people to get all up and down, jumping and excited.
Joe, that I will respond to. I agree with you. It's a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
It doesn't solve the problem.
I agree with that.
It's not completely solved yet, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
That Dan mentioned in regard to that with the county road money, I wrote this down correctly. He said he was pleased that we will be treated equally, in other words, with other areas of the county in terms of the road money. And he even said then that this was a major step forward. Well, actually, it's not a major step forward. It's not even a step. Because the original roads agreement that we made with the county provided that same formula. The county would take the total roads in the county, divide it into the total money that they received from the state of Maryland for roads tax income. And every area of the state, every area of the county received that same per mile rate. And that's been that way since the beginning, so it's nothing new. Bob presented a lot of numbers, a lot of charts, a lot of information today. Prior to Bob Thompson, and Dave Ferguson was here, and other people also. When people came into a meeting, there was a table, and all those numbers were printed out and available for the membership. I'd like to see that start over again. I don't know why we ever stopped. The board of directors are looking at numbers, and people in the audience, people who pay the bills, they don't have a clue what the numbers are. And they may go up and ask Bob after the meeting, or ask somebody after the meeting to get them, but they should be presented at the meeting. I think that's the proper way to do it. I didn't hear an anticipated date for completion of the pool of the yacht club. And you may not want to give one, but all those discussions of Gantt charts left me kind of wondering what you were talking about, because I think you don't think anybody in the association wants to know. And I was thinking, well, you guys would want to know, when are these things going to be done? Those are the two questions, and I didn't hear any discussion of that. And finally, let me talk about trash. Trash. I'm one of those people who supports the board of directors giving some serious consideration to making the trash collection a part of the assessment. And I realize there'll be some non-residents, possibly some residents who like going to the dump. Will make them upset. But I think trash collection, just like storage or anything else, electricity, it's a major important part of every home in Ocean Ponds. And there are problems with the current setup. We get a lot of trash dumped in bags by weekenders or people who live here. Next to where we pick up trash, the association does, we collect the port. We get a lot of members. And before I say that, let me say this. I think, Bob, you made what a lawyer in a courtroom would say was a prejudicial statement. Here's what you said about trash. Here's what you said. We might have a problem with increased delinquencies because another bill was delayed. Bob.
I stand by what I said.
Bob, you can stand by it all you want, but if it's included in the assessment, there is not another bill to collect. It's one assessment. And you were prejudicial on the opposite side because at past meetings, let me finish. town hall meetings, you complained that people were sharing their trash collection and cheating the trash collection company. You made that point at these past meetings. Today, when this issue came up, you did not mention that at all. And I think that's an important part of what the board should understand. I just hope that the board will look at it and get all the numbers. I think it can be reduced, as Tom Terry said. I think if you have 8,440 people paying and they get one check, people don't have to send checks to the trash collection company anymore. They get one check, or two checks, or whatever the deal's made. They don't have, their drivers don't have to worry whether somebody's cheating, whether they're picking up at particular locations. They just pick up everything that's out there. This would help with the leaf collection Dan's talking about. There's non-residents who put their leaves out and they don't have garbage collection, they don't get picked up. OPA has to pick them up. So we're paying, in the long run, the people who do have the collection are in some ways subsidizing those who don't. So I just hope you take a real close look at that.
Thank you, Jim.
Sorry, thank you.
Hello, I'm Ellen Spataro, 99 Windjammer Road. As we get ready to get another change to our board, I wanted to personally thank this board and past board members for the many hours that they have been put in being the gatekeepers of our community. In the 13 years I have lived here, it has become very discouraging to see our amenities fall into disrepair. Our once proud showplace was indeed showing her 40-plus years of wear. Finally, we had elected board members who were willing to use foresight and make hard choices to turn around this decline. Those decisions included bringing in professionals who have the knowledge and experience to run our business. Make no mistake that we may be a homeowners association, but in fact, we rival most towns and small businesses with the assets of our community. The decision to bring a management company in to run our golf course and invest in its much-needed upgrade will pay future dividends to all homeowners in the future. Another positive step was putting a general manager in place who has used that business approach to not only the daily running of such a large complex like the Pines, but has not used the cookie-cutter approach to tackle difficult decisions. A common complaint that he is overly optimistic and upbeat always causes me to smile, since just picking up the local papers or watching reruns of these meetings show there is more than enough negativity around. I think it's a breath of fresh air, and I hope it's contagious. I hope the next board will continue to move us forward and make us an attractive community to all those baby boomers looking for a lifestyle to retire to. I support fiscal responsibility, but with the emphasis on responsibility. Do what is in the best interest of our community. So again, thank you for your service, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Bill Hickey, and along with my wife, Donna, I've lived in Ocean Pines since 2003. We reside in the Interlink section at 74 Hingham Lane. We personally want to be on record that we support the leadership efforts of Bob Thompson, our general manager, as well as the other progressive members of the board, both past and future. The forward-thinking and numerous improvements that Bob has implemented and brought forward to the board have been dramatic and very visible, something that has been missing for many years. We look forward to his continuing management leadership as improvements to our outdated facilities are brought up to 2003 and beyond standards. While we personally don't use every amenity in the Pines, we appreciate the fact that each and every one of them adds to our property value and offers the diversity of activity options needed for all of its residents. Our slight increase in assessment fees is a small price to pay for such advantages. Very few communities offer what we have here in Ocean Pines. Many of our friends who have visited from other states, including Pennsylvania, often comment that we have the best bang for our buck right here in Ocean Pines. We appreciate and applaud Bob's position as he presents new and forward progressive thinking to the board. We fully support the positive changes and upgrades that we have seen over the past couple of years under his management and that of our progressive thinking board members. And we hope that that continues for years to come. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Randy Robbat, Surfer's Way. I just have a question. Bob presented the maintenance and capital program plan to you guys, 18 pages or whatever, and I realize it's a document in progress. It's going to be changed and moved and updated. Dan wants to have a referendum on it at the end. My question is when and if that document will be available to the membership prior to its completion? In other words, can we look at it today, tomorrow, the next day, whatever?
I can upload it to the website.
We'll upload it to the website.
Thank you.
Did everybody hear that answer? We're going to make it public. Planted.
Hi.
It's on.
It's on.
Okay. My name is Gary Nord. I've been in Ocean Pines full-time for a little over 10 years. I live at 15 Windward Court. In the time that I've been here, I gotta say I've seen a lot of animosity among residents, and especially directed toward board members and GM. One of the things that people don't seem to realize is that our facilities have been neglected and are wearing out and now need to be fixed or replaced. The golf courses have problems that are being addressed. The swimming pools have problems that are being addressed. The buildings, the yacht club is one example, have had problems for a long time. Bob has been trying to fix these problems, and I think we need to keep that in mind. A couple examples of issues that have been really bugging me personally recently. The yacht club, the pool. Replacing the pool was not something that any of us planned to do at this time. Certainly the board didn't have it budgeted to replace at this time. But Superstorm Sandy kind of made that decision for us. The fact is that, once it was determined that the pool was damaged as much as it was going to take some time to figure out how best to fix it or replace it. It seems perfectly logical that it would take a little bit of time to figure out exactly what needed to be done. Bob seemed to do everything in his power to see that that process moved along as quickly as possible so that the pool could be opened as quickly as it could. One of the issues, and it's my understanding that once it was determined that the pool had to be replaced, Mr. Terry tried to get contracts approved by the board through emails with the board members. Unfortunately, one of the board members refused to participate in email transactions, which delayed the permitting process and delayed it by several weeks during a month when a lot of permits were being applied for. Mr. Thompson may have been a little over optimistic in his expectations of a quick permitting process, but he's not the one that caused the delay in getting the permits. When we look at the beach club pool, when the pool was being opened, it was discovered there was a big leak in the pool. Repairs started to be made, and unfortunately, a contractor who had wanted to bid and get work on the new yacht club pool didn't get a contract. He went to the town of Ocean City
and complained that we didn't have the proper permits. Well, that wasn't the case. Repairs proceeded, but it's interesting that one of the board members is a friend of the contractor and also had photos that were passed around of the damage to the pool and the work that was being done. I personally feel that this pattern of obstruction and an attempt to sabotage any progress the general manager is making has got to stop. It's not healthy for the community, and it's not up to one person or one small group of individuals to decide what's best for the majority of the OP residents, especially by spreading false innuendos and half-truths. We should be able to have a healthy, even heated discussion about how things should be done without resorting to rude and personal attacks. I've been here for 10 years as a full-time resident. I've seen more improvements in the last 2 since Bob Thompson has been our general manager than I did before. Just my feelings.
Anybody else?
This may inspire others.
Tom Sandusky, I'm going to give you my address, except it is Section 5, Lot 217. Those people here who know me know that I'm not comfortable speaking in public, so I prepared a written thing to keep on point. Several things ancillary came up to before I wanted to get into my main gig here. 45th celebration. Bless you for what you do on those things, Sharon. And if it's anything like what you did on the 35th, this is going to be a crashing success. And I haven't worn my tuxedo since, so I'd like to do that. Mandatory trash collection. You want a firestorm? Why do we want to upset more people, including me? I live alone. I don't have much of that stuff, and I'm happy to take it to the dump. Alternative energy sounds good. I would make a suggestion. If we still have an environmental committee, advisory committee, let's bring that to them. Don't be giving booklets out to amateurs, and we all were amateurs at this. Let's task the environmental committee to study them and make a report back to the board. Okay, I've lived in the Pines for 15 years. I previously served on the board of directors for 4 years. It's been years since I've actually spoken here at one of these meetings, but I find it important to do so now. In those 15 years, I have seen many outstanding directors, some really bad ones. One of those currently sits there to the dismay of many. I have opinions and reflections on the current election, which greatly troubles me, and many others in our community are troubled. I want to stress that what I have to offer today are just that, my opinions. Don't want to be sued again. No. All the bad directors had a common objective: to fire particular employees and general managers. A couple reached those objectives and created unnecessary disruption and employee lack of morale. One in particular, very famous one, caused a $50,000 one-year loss to the yacht club by getting a ridiculous personal issue of his approved in 2008. After it was defeated by the prior board in 2007, he was able to convince people to do these things. I've seen no significant accomplishments during Mr. Clark's tenure other than to cause substantial poor morale, disruption, and other things I'm not going to say now. I see more of this cancer building now. I don't like it, and a lot of people I know don't like it. My remarks are particularly aimed at candidate Langley. Here? Listen up. His announced reason for running is to fire Bob Thompson. Others sense the same objective may be held by another candidate, but at least that candidate presents his views intelligently and from an obviously much more relevant business background. Before the last board meeting, I don't recall ever seeing two of these candidates at any of these board meetings. There are two current board members who championed Mr. Thompson's dismissal. One of those comes off the board in August, and I expect the other has rounded up a few candidates who would help him support his obsession to dismiss the general manager. Be warned, though, candidates, that Mr. Clark has a sad history of filing substantial personal lawsuits against members of the board with whom he disagrees. Be prepared. For any candidate to want a board position just to fire someone is a horrible reason to run and a shameful one. That's the primary one that was reported, and I've heard it. You told that to me on the telephone. Such candidates' views are clearly based on misinformation, influenced by a small group of well-known chronic complainers and naysayers, and it is a small group, as we proved in some fairly recent elections. I value and heavily patronize our amenities, always have, especially our golf course, which is now in world class, and yes, I'm excited, Joe, condition. I'm excited about that. And I talk to every package group that comes in here, make a point of asking where they're from, how they like the course, thank you for playing the course, and they all say, this is the best kept secret around. We're coming. And so we're seeing, I suspect, not excited, I suspect substantial improvement in the revenues there. I also support the much improved yacht club. It has been improved some more, Bob. When I was in there the other night, there was water coming from the bathroom upstairs to the bathroom downstairs. So you're doing the right thing. Well, tear it down. And our community center, which is highly inadequate, by the way, to our needs. Thank you, Mr. Clark, for suing us into the abandonment of a much better center. Almost finished. Typical of past fire somebody candidates, I don't recall ever seeing two of these new candidates at any of those amenities. Could be wrong. Just like their malcontent naysayer backers who never support the amenities, but complain about them. Yet these candidates profess to know how the amenities should be managed. Previous firing somebody directors had a commonality. They insisted on micromanaging our staff behind the GM's back to the GM, causing much wasted time by the staff on their non-board authorized petty issues. I hope that stops soon. Because this resulted in the resignation of Dave Ferguson, in my opinion, an outstanding general manager, with an MBA degree from the prestigious Wharton Business School, and who had previously managed a much larger homeowners association in New Jersey. Dave came to us via a highly competent volunteer search committee headed up by Jeff Morse, who's had a lot of experience at that. That same committee brought us Tom Olson after Mr. Ferguson left. And a subsequent board fired him. Unfairly, in my opinion, but I could be wrong because I was only on the board in that. That was his first year and my last year on the board. I saw no ground for that dismissal. Even more important, well, let's talk about Mr. Ferguson. One of the fire somebody candidates swore to make his life a living hell on the board if he didn't fire somebody else. And he proceeded to do just that. To the point where Mr. Ferguson says, no mas, and resigned. So I have a couple of questions. Question one, do you think our search committee will ever bring us another general manager if we ridiculously dismiss Mr. Thompson? Even more important question, Do you think any intelligent and capable person would ever want the general manager's position if we ridiculously fire Mr. Thompson? Candidates, despite what your mentor may tell you, the general manager reports to the board through the president, not to any individual director. If you've got a problem with the general manager or anybody, you bring it to the president's attention. And if the board agrees this is a problem, the president will take it up with the general manager, not you. Without a doubt, Bob Thompson is the hardest working and most dedicated general manager I've seen in my 15 years here. Believe me, you would not want his job. He is also the most proactive and creative general manager I've seen. Has he made an occasional mistake? Probably. Who doesn't? Oh, except the people don't do anything. I remember it was either Irene or Sandy. We were strongly urged to evacuate. Bob evacuated his family to Annapolis, but he stayed here. The storm wasn't as bad as we thought, but it could have been. He stayed here as captain of the ship. I urge these fire somebody candidates to give up your shameful mission. We need to keep Ocean Pines the most desirable community on the Lower Shore. Keep it desirable and viable. You and your mentor would contribute nothing to that effort. It's not too late for you to withdraw from the campaign for the good of Ocean Pines.
Anybody else?
Excuse me. We have three basic learning modalities. My name is Joel Wentworth. I live at 7 Trinity Place here in Ocean Pines. Basically, folks, we have three basic learning modalities: auditory, visual, tactical. I'm going to speak to you today and hope that we can all learn something from my auditory and visible remarks and comments. Just have a prop here, a couple props.
I'm scared, Bill.
Will not be tomatoes.
Not a bomb, not a bomb. Not a bomb. Over the last couple weeks, we've heard a lot of comments about budget. And we have some board members, Marty, Dave, and I really respect their philosophical view on if the money's not in the budget, unless it is for a emergency reason, then we shouldn't add money to a cost of something. Because I respect their ability to have that view. I don't necessarily agree with them all the time. Because practically speaking, if we buy in that 100%, even if it isn't for a emergency reason, it is not making decisions in the best interest of Ocean Pines from where I stand. Because it could be basically costing Ocean Pines thousands of dollars from not making that critical decision at that time because of something that money not being in the budget to pay for that particular item. The examples that I brought with me today are Roundup, which all of you know, or many of you know, Roundup is a chemical source that's used to kill weeds. Now, hypothetically speaking, let's say our maintenance department at budget time puts in a kind, as part of its budget, has an item number in there for weed control. And shortly after the budget is set, there's a one-time offer for more money to buy more weed control, which will in the end save Ocean Pines lots of money. If we absolutely refuse to do that because it wasn't in the budget and it's not an emergency thing, then we're going to cost the association thousands, if not hundreds of dollars. My example here, Now, this is small dollars, but principle's the same. I have the family economy size bottle of Roundup here. It costs $5. I have the big size thing of Roundup. It costs $14. Now, the facts are, that little bottle that I showed you is 24 ounces. This big bottle here is over 170 ounces. At $5 a bottle, it would cost $35. Excuse me. So therefore, 7 bottles. You would need 7 bottles of the small bottle to match this. At $5 a pop, that's $35. Easy mathematics. So if you had to do that over 7 years, there's 7 times that in here. This would last 7 years. So if we're talking about big dollars, we're talking about over 7 years, the small bottle would cost us $35. Over 7 years, the big bottle still only costs us $14. So we're talking about a difference of, I don't know, about $30. So the point is, when we get into these situations where we have an opportunity to do something with the budget, that we can buy a product for a little bit more investment at a one-time opportunity only, then I think we have a responsibility to do it. Because if we don't, then we're not making decisions in the best interest of Ocean Pines. Now I know, theoretically, folks have their opinion on this, and they're set in their values, but we need some flexibility. To his credit, the year that I spent on the board with Mr. Stevens, there were 3 times that he did vote for something that wasn't in the budget and wasn't an emergency, because it was the right thing to do. Folks, I would hope that there are times you can put your principles and your philosophical views aside to make the decision that is in the best interest of the community. And remember, a budget is nothing more than a guesstimation. There's no way, unless you're clairvoyant, once that budget is set, that you know what's going to come up 5 years from now, 5 months from now, 2 weeks from now. So we need to keep an open mind. We need to make decisions that are in the best interest of the community, not interests based on our own principles. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, before the golf people leave.
It's happy hour.
It's happy hour. Hey, it'll only take another half an hour. Don't worry about it.
My name is Pete Gomsack, and I live at 417 Blue Water Court, and I want to offer a couple of comments to that call. Hold on.
Use the microphone, Pete.
Where's my? Okay. Is it on? Can you hear me? Okay. One, I just want to provide clarification to a question that was asked at the outset of the meeting regarding the golf, the revenues, and the budget, and so forth. As I understand it, the main reason why the budget for the early months of the year, that is May, June, and July, particularly the month of May, the 1 month we have, we simply could not, as an entity, attract the outside play, which has to make those commitments in the months of, say, December, January, and February. So without the confidence on the part of those packagers and other outside groups that, in fact, the Greens project would have been concluded and open for play 18 holes by May 1, they made their decisions to play elsewhere. So we knew that. Billy Casper Golf knew that and reflected that in the budget from a seasonality point of view. So they backloaded in the budget, obviously, a much more optimistic scenario for the latter part of the year and particularly the package season that we know occurs in September and October. So while the board approved what it considered to be a rather optimistic and robust revenue projection and budget for golf, clearly understood it was that the early part of the year, i.e. May in particular, would not be attracting the kind of rounds of golf because those commitments had been made earlier when there was not certainty yet that our golf course would in fact be open. So that's what I'm going to clarify. Number two, I'm pleased to report that at the end of the fiscal year, April 30th, lifetime membership was 16 members and $240,000, which you've seen in your financial statements that you've already received. I'm really pleased to report that since then we've added 4 more. We now have 20, and the dollars are $300,000. I thank you very much. Thanks, Bill. Thank you, Peter.
Bullock Osteen, 12 Road Drive. I see Tom leaving. I'm not nothing against you, but I disagree with you what you said about Marty Cross. Okay, that's your opinion. I want to turn on the whole board. I hear everything over here about Bob Thompson. I'll be approached by people, and I have a different story. I have talked to some members, some board members, and people, and it's very well known there's something wrong with Bob Thompson. Bob
It's funny, isn't it, Marty?
Oh, wait a minute. I got the floor.
He does have the floor, Tom, and we'll shut up. I mean, it's not for you to. Yes, you did.
All right.
Give one person the floor at a time. We had a whole long, over 10 minutes or 15 minutes of you, and now you can't let him talk?
Okay.
Go ahead, Dutch.
I have talked to some members from the board. I've been approached by people, and Mr. Thompson was made manager without any investigation. If you go back to Ocean City, they got a new manager over there, took 6 months. They got a new police officer, took 6 months. Orleans got a new manager, took 6 months. Mr. Thompson was brought in by Rico. Mr. Rico was a very nice guy. But Rico did not an investigation. I'll be approached by people in Cambridge for Mr. Thompson worked in a finance company. And something went wrong over there. I want you people, before this guy get a new contract, that you spend $20,000 out and investigate him and let him come clean. If you can spend $10,000 on Marty Clark, spend $20,000 in him. Everything he has done, I hear, oh, Mr. Olson or Mr. Thompson did that. Everything was a disaster. What happened to us? Hey, keep your mouth shut.
Excuse me.
Dutch. Sorry. Okay, don't get me upset. I'm talking. Everything was a disaster. He blames everything on other people. He takes no responsibility. I want you, Tom. You've been running for the board. The people are not happy what goes on with the general manager. I want you to investigate his back. You deserve that. The people of Ocean Pine deserve that to know the man's background. Another thing I want to ask you, I was supposed my wife was in the hospital by a nurse. She pays $150 a month on her dues. She said, Mr. Ocean, I cannot pay the $1,000. She went to your office and wanted a pass, a family pass on an Ocean Pine for a kid. She was refused that pass while she had not paid her dues on. But all people outside can come and swear you can get it back. This lady has to pay extra money like the people from the outside. See, the same thing with the golfing and with the swimming. We lost a lot of old people. I told you that a couple of years ago. The old ladies, they get the grandson and want to take them go swimming, or the father likes to go golfing. Why we we don't let them kids for nothing, and why did these people have to stay sitting down? If them kids enjoy it now, they come back when they're old. The same thing with golf. We have to give in. We cannot ask people money, money, and money. And I ask you, Tom, to investigate Mr. Thompson. I want an investigation before you give him a new contract. Let him tell you what the story is. But there's a lot of people know what's going on.
Chip Bertino, Nottingham Lane, Ocean Pines. I have nothing to say about the election, and I have nothing to say about Bob Thompson, so this is going to be boring compared to everybody else. But I do have a question. About a month and a half ago, there was some concern about one of the subcommittees, the advisory groups, misunderstanding about what their roles were and what rules that they had to adhere to as far as the conduct of the meeting, whether or not it was open or closed. My question is, do the advisory committees and or the chair people of those committees receive any sort of guidance from the board or anyone as to how they are to conduct the meetings under what governing rules apply to their subcommittees? And if it's not, if that does not occur, is there an opportunity to maybe educate these volunteers so that they do the very best that they can do? So does anybody know whether or not they receive any sort of guidance?
I know that many of them do,
Okay.
whether it's formal or not. They are, when you join one of those committees, you are given information. When you're a chair, we have executive committee meetings twice a year. As far as open meetings, those meetings are their meetings. Advisory committees are all open to the public. They're published on the website as to when they're going to meet.
Well, it just seemed like there seemed to be some confusion on the part of the members as to what their role was and what governing rules or what rules govern them. And it just seems to be some confusion. I don't think there was any outright motive for deception or anything, but it might be of some help to them if in fact that's not the case. So I just wanted to ask the question. Thank you very much.
One of the committees was Recreation and Parks, and we had an issue with minutes not being done, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I did was at the next meeting, that was on the agenda. We do have now up-to-date minutes. We have a secretary, and I actually handed them out the resolutions and so that they could actually have that, make sure everybody had the same information. And I know that some other people did the same thing. We just kind of filled in the gaps after we, heard their comments.
Well, I think that's helpful. The committee I was talking about was the election committee, and one of the members was quoted as saying we don't follow Maryland law. And I don't know if that was a moment of, I don't know what the reason for that was. But it does send a signal that, at least a question in my mind, well, do they recognize or understand what they're supposed to be following? Just a point of education, not a criticism at all, but an opportunity maybe to educate some of these folks. Thank you very much.
If I may, Sharon, I guess it's about 3-4 months ago, brought up the fact that committee members, in her opinion at any rate, were confused. That's the feedback that she's been getting. And she went out to talk to all of the chairs of all of the committees and came back with the piece of paper. We had a committee of the chairs, a meeting of the chairs, which happens twice a year, the executive council, I guess we call it. And there was a lot of discussion at that. Now, having said that, I have not seen any minutes from that meeting or any recommendations or anything at all, So, but I think one of the conclusions that we did reach, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, Sharon was there, was that our resolutions, starting with C1, which is the master resolution for all of the committees, that they do tell the committees what their responsibilities are. It's not to say they're perfect, but they do. And if the committee chairs look at that, if the committee members do read those and understand them, then I don't know how much better we can do.
Dave's recognition is correct. And we looked at we even gave each chair a the opportunity to look at their C-fill in the blank for their number for their advisory committee and to suggest changes to it if they felt something needed to be changed. And I think there were 2 that applied for changes, which we have since voted into place. So, but your point's well taken, that there was that Sharon, in doing her study, there was a confusion as to what their mission in life was and what they were, and we're still trying to work through that. It's not an easy thing to solve.
No doubt, but they're volunteering their time, and certainly they want to work in our best advantage for the membership. So that was the reason for my question.
Chip, I am the advisor to the elections committee, the liaison, and I can assure you that the chairperson of that committee has been fully briefed on the requirements of the State Homeowners Association Management Act and understands today what is required under that. So we won't run into that problem on that committee again. As for the person who made the remarks, I think it was simply tempered in a rather tense situation for several reasons, and we're all human and we'll make mistakes. I think that was probably the biggest reason that happened.
Thank you very much.
Well, my chairperson advises me on a sense.
One more brief comment, please.
Unless there's no one, is there anyone else? Okay, Jody.
The last word. He's requesting the last word.
Mr. President, I know you're in a position that's sometimes tough with public comments, but I think we need to realize that there's a very distinct difference. Sometimes it may not be too distinct between personal attack and legitimate criticism. Lots of times people with legitimate criticisms are ridiculed to some extent around here. But I don't believe we can put up with what are personal attacks. I raised objection when Mr. Holstein was talking, because I believe that a great deal of what he said was a personal attack. But on the other hand, there were a number of people here who obviously came, I think, in some sort of an organized fashion to support Mr. Thompson against one of the candidates for the board. And I believe on at least more than one occasion, there were personal attacks made against Marty Clark. And no one said a word. I didn't even say a word. But when Dutch started, I had to say something. But I think that there were personal attacks made here today by both sides. And while it's a tough job, Mr. President, at least until the next election, it's your job, and I think we need to stop that. Thank you.
I will, Joe, let me respond to that. One of the things that I had in discussions with Bob long ago, when I first got into this chair, I had said that the only discussion and public comment that I was not going to allow to happen is to attack on a staff member who wasn't here. Bob gets paid to be in the chair, and he's sitting here. We sit here as volunteers. Again, the only time, and I have cut people off, I think twice, for attacking staff members who were not present to defend themselves if they felt like doing so. So, in general, I agree with you. I think that some of these comments were, especially the last one, it's a tough job. You're right. And I'm sure it's very hard to sit here and take some of that. Either whether you're to my right or my left, it's hard to take that kind of stuff and not respond. But trust me, over the 3 years, I've had plenty of it aimed at me. And I've sat here and taken it, and that's what you get to do when you're up here. Yes. Anyone else? I know there's, okay.
I'm glad, Pete Comsack, I'm glad Joe said what he said. I just want to really quickly say that what I heard here from Mr. Osterby was more than a personal attack. There was an accusation, and there was something that was, perhaps I'm not a lawyer, could well be considered libelous, because he was talking about his banking career, problems, and investigating it. That is so out of line, Tom. So out of line. Bob, I apologize for what was it. I just can't conceive of somebody coming up to this microphone making that kind of an accusation involving your past career in banking. It's beyond.
Yes.
For the record, I've never worked in Cambridge. Anybody who wants to check can certainly check any of my records. I don't hide anything.
Yes. Well, we got one more. You wanted to be.
Bob Reed Snyder, 4 Helm Court. I have just one thing to say. I object to this gentleman here reserving the last right to speak, especially since he's a county.
Well, number one is because it's not going to be addressed to the board, addressed to the members of here. It wasn't appropriate for me to address the board in the manner that I want to address you guys. My question is not.
Let me say, you do not have that right in this meeting. As a matter of fact, you may only address the board, you may only address the chair of the board, and that's Robert's Rules of Order, and it's the rules that we follow. Sometimes not completely, but that's true in this case for sure.
I try my best to be supportive of everyone. If you have a comment to make, you will make it to the board, to me. I will be more than happy to hear it.
That's what this is, it's court.
Well, you just had the explanation.
I need to respond.
Then you'll have to do it in a public forum because the rules are being.
Yes.
Go ahead and respond. We have a right to respond. That's all I'm saying.
Public comment over.
Tom, I think you ought to call the public meeting to a close.
Yeah, public comments are closed.
Used so bad.
That's enough.
Better than I've ever seen.
We've been down this road. Okay, no, this is old business. Sharon.
Okay, I have a motion here to validate a vote that was taken. A motion. It is moved that the Board of Directors validates the action to agree to an extension of the Eastern Shore gas contract for 6 months. During this extension, a new contract will be negotiated to meet the needs of the OPA and its members. The draft of the new contract will be delivered to the Board of Directors for their review no later than the board meeting to be held on October 2013. Purpose and effect. The extension allowed Eastern Shore Gas to continue to use the right-of-ways within Ocean Pines owned by the OPA to continue service to the residents of Ocean Pines for 6 months, while the sale of Eastern Shore Gas to Chesapeake Utilities Corporation is concluded and the new distribution company that will be providing the service for the community is established. The new contract will be negotiated to set the agreement for the new company to have the rights to use the right-of-ways.
Discussion? Okay.
The notice of this needed extension was late in coming. The termination of the existing contract was imminent at the end of May. There were very few days left in the existing contract. The OPA attorney was contacted for his review of the extension, and he concurred with the request from Eastern Shore Gas. The Board of Directors were all sent information by the President on the request from Eastern Shore Gas for the 6-month extension. The majority of the board agreed to the extension in order to maintain Eastern Shore Gas's right to use the right-of-way to continue to provide service. The President does acknowledge that he had not heard an official position from 2 of the members of the board before he had to take action, since the existing contract was going to expire and the sale of Eastern Shore Gas would be delayed if action was not taken. Service was needed to continue to our members.
Tom? Dan?
Clarification, the letter received by Ocean Pines on April 22nd references a May 13th date in which the contract came to an end. I was led to believe it was the end of May where it came through. Just a clarification on that. But either way, the Eastern Shore Gas folks would not have the legal right to continue to use the right-of-way if we had not done something. Now, they obviously were still using it after the 13th because I didn't sign the letter of extension until after that date. But to clarify it was not the end of May of when the contract was running out. The contract in fact had run out. And I will, as I stipulated in my discussion with Sharon and the discussion, it is in fact the case that there were two members of the board who had not formally given me their answers. I was incorrect in taking action and signing that contract without waiting for their answers. I had answers from everybody else. I violated the bylaws when I did that. And I should have waited for their vote, and I didn't, and I made a mistake. That doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't ratify the motion, but I did make a mistake. I want to go public on that to make sure everybody understood I knew that. All right.
You said most of what I was going to say, except when I look at this discussion, the notice needed for the extension was coming late, and my question on that, of course, I brought to your attention, it was
Yes, you did.
5:13.
Thank you.
How many people on the board have read the contract? How many people on the board have read the extension?
I read the extension.
Just got it.
And how many think they've done their due diligence? You haven't done it. You signed something, you haven't read the contract, you approved a contract you've never read.
I didn't sign the original contract, Marty.
You signed an extension
Yes,
of
I
it.
did.
It was expired, not terminated, on the 13th.
Okay,
I don't remember seeing the cloud. I don't
Let me
remember
help you
seeing
out with
the
let me help you out a little bit of legal issue here. If you, as a board of directors, allow a gas company to continue to use right-of-ways that you have not given them the rights to use, and then something blows up, where are we supposed to be?
And where did you get that legal advice?
In discussion, because I used to be in the business of doing right-of-ways and rights of use for utilities. I was in the business.
Our attorney gave us no advice to that at all.
Because
Because
the
he has to
attorney gave
recuse
us the
himself.
advice to sign the extension is what he did.
I don't read that.
You can read it any way you want, that's how I read it.
That's not what he said. Look, I don't want to argue
Are you
about
against
this.
the extension?
I may not be, because
Okay.
I've done my due diligence, and I
Okay.
think that we probably ought to extend it for
Okay,
6
yes.
Yeah, first of all, I have to comment on Sharon's discussion. It's inaccurate, or at least it's misleading, if not specifically inaccurate. Two members haven't voted. What actually happened, May 29th, I sent let's see, when did I get we got the information on the 28th. And on the 29th, I sent out an email saying, what are we extending? It was a simple email. I said, just tell me. You could probably summarize in 2 or 3 sentences at the very most what's in this document. I asked the question, what are we extending? And I didn't get an answer. I didn't. I sent out a question again. I didn't get an answer.
Well, the fact is, Dave, you did. You got the write-up from Joe Moore that I forwarded to everybody.
The write-up did not answer the question of what the basic contract with ESG was and what it was that we're extending. I have that write-up. We can all look at it, but it didn't say that, and you know it. It was a simple question. Bob Thompson should have answered the question in 2 sentences. No, it's not okay. The other thing that's true is this issue isn't really about whether, once I had that answer, I would have agreed to do a vote, email vote, and I would have voted for it. But the issue is not to put out first question you have to ask in those circumstances is, does everybody agree to vote by email? That has to be unanimous. It has to be unanimous. Does everybody agree to vote by email? That's what the bylaws say. Once you've done that, then you can have the vote. And the vote can be 4-3, 2-1. It doesn't matter. That's what the bylaws say, and that's what we have to do. Now, the fact of the matter is, we were already past the date. What did you say? April 22nd was the day that we got the notice from?
That's what the letter said.
The letter from April 22nd. What happened to the rest of April and the beginning of May up to the 13th? This is such a small thing if you do it right. A really small thing if you do it right.
If I may, I also asked the same question on the 28th, and I asked it again on the 30th, and it's never been answered. You've never answered it. And if you read what our attorney's non-opinion says, it says basically exercise your best business judgment. That's what it says. I leave it to the board's business judgment. Boy, if I had an attorney give me advice like that, I'd never make a mistake.
Well, in fact, the attorney shouldn't advise us on something like that because
He can't.
it is our business judgment.
Yeah, but he can't. There's a conflict of interest. He cannot advise us on this issue.
We can't use him going forward in negotiations.
Can't use him for that letter.
We cannot.
That's why that letter says nothing.
I'll call the question.
We have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it's Ray second.
Ray seconded. Right, that's when we got in a discussion.
Did you get the count, Michelle?
Did you get it? I didn't even hear it.
Good week.
You
Michelle,
whispered it.
we need
All
another
in favor?
count, yes.
Aye. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's 6. Did you?
I voted aye.
It's 7-0.
It's
So it's 7-0.
7-0.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, it's my turn and I'll make this quick.
Please.
I'm a half hour late for work as it is. I move that the Board of Directors instruct the General Manager to pay off the mortgage loan for the sports court enclosure with money from our historical reserve accounts. There's $8.4 million in those accounts currently and $5 million in cash in the bank. The current balance is approximately $252,000, of which we're paying 7.19 interest. If we pay that for another year, it's going to cost us $15,000. Totally unnecessary when we can simply write a check and get out of that mortgage.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second for the purposes of discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
You know, we just mentioned the word business judgment. This would fail the test of any businessman who gets up and goes to work. We're getting 1% or less in paying 7%. That's a negative arbitrage.
Right.
Yeah.
Would this have any impact on assessments?
Not coming out of reserves.
Isn't this an operating?
It's operating.
This is operating, the interest, isn't it? It's not reserves.
Still wouldn't impact assessment.
It would if we had to pay it off.
Yeah.
This isn't operating, this is not a reserve issue.
Yeah, this
Am
is-
I misunderstanding something? I think that this is operating, and if we had
This
to add
is
$200,000 to operating, then that is going to be affecting our bottom line for the year. Now, this may be a very good thing to discuss next year in the budget, Ray.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent idea, but right now, this is an operating, this is not a
Yeah, well,
reserve
it
item.
would depend on what account. You're right. It could be written out of the regular money that's in the bank. It would be operating. But out of the reserve, you're right. Yeah, what difference does it make? Yeah,
So
you're right.
Well, it's,
I mean, look, when we overrun, as we have in the past, our operational budget, what happened? The money didn't come out of our pocket. It didn't come out of some operating fund that we had off on the side. It came out of our bank account.
But Dave, is this a budgeted expense?
It came out,
Is this a budgeted item in our budget
Oh,
to pay
it-
this off, is it?
it absolutely is not a budget.
Okay, thank you, that's what I wanted to hear you say.
Okay. Nor was the golf greens, nor was a whole bunch of other, I mean, there's so many unbudgeted items. I mean, what we've effectively have, you know, I'm sorry, but what we have in that reserves, those reserves, is an unrestricted bank account. And if Ray's saying take money out of the bank account now and pay off the operational loan, I mean, compared to the history of what's been going on in the last 3 years, I mean, I'd say why not? And by the way, Bill's gone now, but
Yeah.
the rationale for doing that is that we saved $17,000. It is the wrong thing to do. It is the wrong place for it to come to. But guess what? It happens a lot.
Yes, Terry.
okay, so Dave, you're telling me that at the end of your 3 years, you're going to vote for something out of budget? and it's not an emergency.
Hey.
Is that correct?
Well, Bill actually didn't tell the full story, you know.
No, no, no,
One of
We're
the,
not talking about Bill.
one of the problems is, yes. I mean, I can go back to my original thing 6 years ago and say, look, I'm not gonna vote for something that's out of budget.
And so why?
Unless it's an emergency.
Okay, before we get.
Or,
Go ahead.
if there is a substantial benefit to be derived from it, financial benefit to be derived from it. I mean, you know, and in this particular case, 17,000.
One of the things
okay.
that, I mean, obviously, Marty, this was brought up on the agenda. We knew it was coming. Terry, I know that I asked for the real business case to be worked out. This is at 50,000 feet. What is the real impact on our budget? What is the real impact here?
Probably the easiest, probably the easiest way is to just have everybody look at it. And full disclosure, Pete helped me with this. Actually, I have one. And just give me the extra spec, please. I mean, because I'm not good at doing these numbers like this. But if you want to take them and throw them in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And can I ask for the assistant treasurer's assistant since he created the document? Can you help Pete explain your document?
I can fly to it?
Yes, please.
Sure. We budget, you all budget, I don't do it anymore. You all approve a budget which has three components: operating expenses and income, which includes amenities, and then in the operating funds. And then secondly, you have new capital, as distinguished from replacement capital, which affects assessment. And then the third thing you have that affects assessment in the operating fund is principal payments on debt. Okay? So the three-legged stool, as I like to call it, is what comprises the operating fund, and you divide that by 8,447, and that's the assessment for the year. We have budgeted, you have budgeted in your what you approved this year, the normal principal payment on that debt, right? Okay? And that normal principal payment is what's reflected in the 2014 column. So you budgeted interest of $17,000 this year. You budgeted principal payments, which directly affected the amount of assessment this year, $55,000. And then, of course, we had some income on the funds, roughly $230,000 on average we have this year. So that the net cost of all that related to that loan this year, in setting the assessment, was $69,700 or $825 per member. Doing what is suggested to be done, not to the reserve fund, right? That's inappropriate in my judgment. I'll get back to that in a way, because that's precedent setting and breaking faith anyway. So if you did that, you'd reduce interest expense. You're absolutely right. And that interest reduction would be the difference between the $17,000 and the $3,100. $13,900. Correspondingly, you'd have $2,000 less income. So the net interest impact on the fiscal year, remember we're 2 months into it, right? So the net impact, but then you'd have, instead of $55,000 hitting the operating fund through principal payments, you'd have $257,000 hitting it. We've already had 2 months of principal payments, May and June, and then you'd have the one-time payment of $248,700. So what you'd have is $55,000 budgeted, actual $257,000, throwing the operating fund into an immediate deficit for the year. So at the end of the 12 months, if everything else was on budget, which it won't be, of course, yacht club, golf, et cetera, if everything else were, and you did this, you would be in deficit for the year by $190,000 or $22 differential between what. So over the life of I think the right thing to do is to take a look at it during the budget cycle. But I put there a separate section of remaining principal and interest payments, because what we are is in the last years of this loan. So almost all the payments are principal and very little of its interest. And so what I did was run through the next 4 years to the expiration of the loan, and we've got a total of $288,000 of payments left. It's $6,000 a month, okay? It's $72,000 a year times 48 months. It's real simple math, 288. And of that, 248 is principal, 39 is interest. The average per year interest going forward, which you're talking about saving on interest expense, is $9,800 per year, or 87 cents per member. 87 cents per member is what you're talking about. So take it up, in my judgment, in the budget process. Do not, in my judgment, throw an immediate, unbudgeted, it's budgeted, you can now accept it. It would throw the operating fund into a deficit. One last comment about what was made here. This does affect operating, as we said. And you know, the treasurer was absolutely right. It affects operating fund, which is the basis of the due. A number of the other variances that you all keep talking about relate to replacement fund capital, which does not affect the operating fund. So if you're at a budget or over budget with a replacement capital item, yes, you have to withdraw more out of the replacement, but it does not affect the operating fund, does not affect assessment. Any questions on that schedule?
Marty,
Ray, you're the one who has, I mean, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have on this.
I understand what you're saying.
My question is, thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
I just, you know, we're sitting here, we generated a $405,000 negative last year. Over 652,000 in negative operations at our amenities. And we're sitting here now talking about a sensible, reasonable thing to do to get rid of a debt at 7% with an asset earning 1%. You know, the three-legged stool business, guys, the stool connects to one ass where you sit down, and this money that's in the reserves comes as much out of your assessments as capital does. But yes, we're not talking about capital. It's all member money, and if we can save them, I don't know where your $9,000 number came from. Simple math.
9 times 4 is 37.
9 times 4?
4 years, yeah.
Oh, no. Next year we'll pay 15,000 different spread at
Marty,
252.
Just to be, we earn 1.5%.
What's that?
We earn 1.5%.
We are not at 1.5%.
1.4.
Guys, here's the latest from our esteemed controller. We are at 0.0115 for not 6 million. Wait a minute, hold it. They just all changed. They just all changed.
10-year treasury just went to 266.
We are at 0.0075 for 9 million. We are at 0.0025 for $250,000. We are at 0.0025 for another $250,000. Where are we getting this 1 point?
And when did that become effective?
I know this is dated 5/31/13. Do you have something more recent?
Yeah, last year we earned about 1.5 of our money.
Last year, next year we might earn 20%.
I'm just saying where the rates have been. Is it 1.4 and change, 1.49?
Quick question. How much has the 7% gone down? Boop. None.
Well, based on,
Why don't we just finish that up with,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
what person would go out and borrow money today at 7%? If you're not going to pay it off, at least refinance it.
Well, that was going to be my other suggestion.
No, it isn't a good idea.
Well-
We need to go financing like a snake needs shoes.
Well, they did try to refinance a couple of years ago, but that was a suggestion that came up, was to go at least try again.
Try again. Why would you borrow money at any percent over a 0.75% when you got 9 million in the bank?
well, I'm not nearly as learned as Pete when it comes to this kind of thing.
Pete
but-
also-
But I will say
May
this.
I respond to one thing?
Yeah,
I said
yeah.
your
Go ahead.
motion is, and I haven't seen your motion before, quite honestly. I haven't seen your motion. I mean, I knew you made a motion. but What you mentioned was replacement reserve fund.
Not in the motion, no.
Oh,
Just-
okay.
just-
Let me just caution you. I have gone back over 40 years in that replacement reserve fund, and notwithstanding the rumors to the contrary, I have never seen an instance in any audited financial statement over the entire period of time since the inception of Ocean Pines where monies were taken out of the replacement reserve fund and used for operating or other purposes. Yes, there was the policy once upon a time of transferring the interest earnings over to the operating, which had a corresponding lowering effect on the assessment. But now what, so when you say, I want to make a motion to take it out of the perpetual reserve fund and use it.
I did not, no.
That has never been done by any board.
It says historical reserve accounts on this motion.
That's the
It
historical
does say that.
portion of the replacement reserve fund. No board has ever done that.
You don't do that.
And I would,
Excuse me.
thank you very much.
Ray, you've been trying to get in here.
Is it illegal?
Actually,
Yes,
actually,
yes.
yes. Actually,
The
yes.
board
I think
would
we're
take a
voting long now.
supermajority, as I think Dave Stevens knows, supermajority, it would be breaking face with the residents of this community, the members of this
Oh, much
community.
like the $900,000 in greens.
That's it.
Excuse me, Ray, you've been trying to get in here. It's your motion.
Yeah. The motion in my mind simply says if we pay it off, we save ourselves $39,000. It's that simple based on your numbers.
Over 4 years. But if you do it in the budget, it's,
Yeah.
Well, then obviously we have to change this not to say that, correct? Or, I don't know.
We'd have to-
That's discussion. The motion
Yeah.
should say the
We're
same.
up here.
We said $30,000, $39,000 over 4 years. That's enough.
What this chart says to me is that if we do this, we are imposing on our general manager a $190,000, 700 operational deficit when the majority of our payments that we're making right now are in fact against the principal, not against the interest. So the effective interest rate is not 7.19% because we're in the second half of the loan.
Right.
It's
So
7% on the principal. It's not,
It's still
isn't it
principal.
amortized?
It's like paying off a, Marty, you know this, it's like paying off a house.
You
The
gotta
later
pay it.
on into the loan, you're
You
making
pay.
more against the principal than you are interest. And this is no different.
How did this get from 252 down to 190 something?
Well, I don't know. I didn't do this chart, so
well, I'm sorry, what was the question? on the
how
chart?
did we get from 202 down to 190?
252. It was 252 4 days ago.
What's 252?
The balance.
All right, if you notice the date I have there, Marty,
I can't read it.
you can't read it, I can't help you read it.
It's June 10th.
The
Yeah,
dates
you've got June 1013. That was a
Oh,
while ago,
okay.
Pete.
That's how it got down.
Marty, the answer
You know,
is.
he got it. He
Got it.
understands that you put two payments that we've already
Yeah, we've already
made
made
into
June and
that.
July payments.
Right.
Or May and June payments, excuse me. And you can't refinance it 2 months ago, you gotta do it now, so that's.
Understand?
It's only,
I asked for a payoff the other day from Art,
Yeah, no,
and I
I-
was given 252.
yeah, we've made payments for May and June already this fiscal year, so you got 10 more months in this fiscal year. Okay, anything else on this? Thanks.
Any other discussion?
Well, yes, just one comment. I don't disagree with the fact that saving money is a good idea. At the same time, setting a precedent to go crack a reserve fund and start using reserve dollars when we have losses.
Oh, we're not doing it.
Well, aren't we?
No, we are not. What we
Where-
are
where-
doing,
where are
what
we
we are
getting
doing, what we're doing is ending the year with a large operational deficit, a much larger operational deficit.
But where are we going to source the funds?
Well, same
Borrow
way.
from reserves.
You need to.
We are going to do it from a bank account. We're going to do it
in other
from our
words,
bank account.
in other words, money is non-fungible. I've heard this
Then,
argument.
no, it's, well, I don't use that term, but Dan, I'm serious about this, Dan. I mean, fundamentally, we're taking it, and it's happened before. It's happened several times before. And that's why we have that operational recovery plan. And by the way, we were going to use, I think still are, the operational recovery plan and extend it out. No new assessments, by the way, just, keep collecting it, for the IRS.
Yeah.
And if we have an operational deficit, we will no doubt use that same recovery money that's coming in to pay that off. Don't ask me how long it'll take, but you can figure that out.
Okay, that's assuming that a board who creates, after the general manager creates a budget for next year, the board and the general manager agree that we're going to do that instead of doing what the obvious solution would be, and that's say, okay, I got a $190,000 deficit sitting there. My $190,000 divided by 8,447, my assessment's going up that much next year to pay that back.
The thing of it is that the board does not have to do anything. The money is coming in. Now, the option is to stop taking that money and reduce assessments. Now, you tell me if that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, given the other issues that we have out there that are demands on our funds, no, we're not going to do that.
No.
I mean, we've already spent, what, $6 million, almost $7 million on yacht club pool, golf course.
No, we're talking about only operations. We run an operational deficit as we did, 3 years ago? I don't remember the years.
Okay.
Pete added it up, 4 years ago. He added it all up to, I think, $500,000 and said we got to do something about it.
Right.
Let's start collecting more money. And we did. Start collecting. Now we're still collecting it. We're going to collect it next year, and the year after that, and year after that.
And we have.
And we've also had some surplus years besides. We've had some surplus.
But we also have a couple of things going on that you just mentioned. Okay, that fund is going to be used for as well. We get over $400,000, $459,000 in an income tax bill.
Right.
That Uncle Sam is going to want to be paid for, and we're using that recovery fund to recover that. And we've got, what, 350 something?
No, we're not using the recovery fund for all of that, for one thing. And secondly, we have, in the period of time since then, we've had operational surpluses. They didn't go back into anybody's pocket. I mean, they're still in there. So, I guess the bottom line is, it's complicated, but you can save money doing this. Not much.
Try to follow that some clarification. Cash is different than operating funds and deficits and surpluses, okay? Let me just break it down this way. We had, as you all know, a $500,000 operating fund deficit once upon a time, right?
Yep.
We put into place the $4 increase of the $30 annual increase to take care of that. Over 5 years, we've accumulated enough money to virtually eliminate that, and that transfer is going to be made, okay? So we've raised $450 through that, collecting 4, then 8, then 12, 12, and 16. Okay, so people say, and you talk about this year's deficit. It's large, it's very large, $400,000. However, the last 3 fiscal years, aside from the IRS case, and I'll get to that in a second, it's a real liability. Aside from that, we had operating surpluses the last 3 years, cumulatively, of how much? $360,000. 2 of those years were Bob's, and 1 was his predecessor. So we went 3 years in association, year after year, having deficits that accumulated $500,000. We dealt with that by having the $4 increment, okay? Next 3 years, we had profits, we budget 0, so everything, the profit is a variance, of $360,000. This year we have unaudited $400,000. That means the net for the 4-year period is $40,000. I'd say that's quite manageable. Lastly, we have the $459,000 IRS, which the board approved a plan. Ray, you were part of that. $459,000 to deal with that by extending the $4 increment, which has now risen to $16. So in a few more years, it's not about cash, ladies and gentlemen. It's about eliminating the deficit, which means your liabilities are greater than your assets. Okay? So the cash, we're not talking about cash here. We're talking about eliminating the operating deficit. So the IRS, the $4 component of the 30, which when continued at the $16 level, will take a few more years to eliminate that IRS deficit. Okay? Does that make sense? So we have 3 different things here. $500,000 old deficit, taken care of through the $4 incremental increase. We have the IRS, which will be eliminated in a couple more years with the continuation of that $4 increment, which is now up to 16. And lastly, we have this very large $400,000 loss this year, which has been virtually erased by the $360,000 profit in the previous 3 years. So that's all there was.
Go ahead, Martin.
We made a substantial payment to the IRS already.
We have paid a lot of money.
Okay. Where did that money come from?
Our bank account.
Which bank account? Reserves, correct?
No.
It came out of operations.
Marty.
I'm just asking a question.
The answer is it came out of, at any point in time, he's got a bank account which represents all, it did not come out of reserve funds.
Okay.
It did not come out of reserve.
Second question. You say you're going to reduce or pay off momentarily this $500,000 deficit. Where's that money coming from?
The money's already been collected on $4 increments.
That's only a balance of, that's only a $311,000 balance.
When?
April 30th, 13.
What happened May 1st?
Would you put another 100 in there? I don't
So
know.
look at your current financial statement.
You know what? I can only go with the
Why-
stuff that I'm given.
I'm not trying to be smart. That's the year-end balance. Year 5 of the 5-year plan kicked in May 1st of 2013. We immediately collected, Marty, a sizable amount of money on May 1st that got to the number I'm talking about.
Okay, you answered my question. But it's hard for me to know that when I'm given old information.
The answer is the recovery fund is now sitting at 4,400, 446,869.
Okay, cool.
446, with interest, Marty, it'd be 450.
I'm with you.
And in the future, we will be collecting 160
Thank you.
plus change, or 160,000.
And that will be applied towards the 459,000, right. So do the math, Dave. 160 a year for what, 3 years?
So,
yeah.
as long as you
Less than 3 years
keep
gone.
that in place, you're not worried about deficits. Okay.
You gotta keep that, the board's resolution says that will stay in place until such time as the IRS 459 is eliminated. Remember that motion?
Yeah, I
Now,
remember.
any board can say, oh, heck with that.
No, that's true, but also any board could say, look, we can extend it for that.
We can also address this in the next budget issue. Thank you, Pete.
But the intent was to have a plan to deal with all 3 of these issues, and the plan is working. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pete.
Looking at the interest that we would pay over the next, this is very rough back of the envelope, but looking at the interest we would be paying over the next 4 years against what the principal amount that is left, we have basically a little under 3% interest rate is the effective rate of what our loan is at this point, because most of our payment is going to principal. Ray has got to go to work. I've got to call the question on this motion. Ray, I appreciate that. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? 5-2. Thank you, Ray. I appreciate. Sorry, I know you had to leave. I appreciate you hanging in there as long as you did. Happy birthday.
Thank you too.
Okay.
Huh?
Morty.
Terry Moore.
We have had, it seems like every meeting, the same things come up.
Your mic's not.
Your mic is not working.
There you go.
There you go.
Every meeting, we have the same things come up. We didn't get this on time. We can't vote on this because we didn't know about it, and multiple other things. So I just asked that this be put on the agenda so that we could discuss what the needs are as far as each board member, so that we don't have to have this discussion every time and we can get our work done. Is basically why I put it on the agenda. But I wanted everybody to have a chance to voice their wants, needs, and desires.
May I go first?
I'm going to start off, if you don't mind. Starting off with, we need to establish, and it was brought up earlier in the meeting, we need to establish what months we want to treat out of a fiscal year that starts other than January, as to exactly what months the quarterly reports, because they have to have time to finish the books in order to do the quarterly reports. What months do we want to establish as being the quarterly, at minimum, quarterly review of the finances? At minimum.
What difference does it make? Every 3 months, we get a quarterly report.
Okay.
Period. I don't care
So
if
in
it's
July, we would get a report for April, May, and June.
Well, that doesn't make much sense.
Well,
because
that's-
you'd want to end it probably in April. But you could do in June, you could do in April, back.
That's why I asked the question.
I mean, it doesn't matter. We're not getting any. Last one we had was February.
She's trying to ask, what would you like? That's what.
Let's do it this way.
Well-
The bylaws call and resolutions call for quarterly reports.
Okay.
And-
We're not doing that.
And in,
Let's do that.
and in addition, I want to ask, and I don't know whether you can answer this or not, Bob, I mean, maybe it might be, I'd have to ask Gardner or whatever. Is there timing that we have to be respectful of in order to get these quarterly reports? I mean,
No, quarterly reports aren't hard to get. The
year end?
The year end's a little tougher because we're wrapping up, we're closing out the books and more goes into it. And it's also right at the time when the auditors have been in with us the last 2 weeks. So there's a combination of things drawing at our financial department resources.
Now, Marty, quarterly reports and the year end, two different discussions?
I don't think it has to be.
So the last quarterly report can be the year end, correct?
The only person still awake at the table, Dan, came up with this. July?
Excuse me.
Excuse me? July?
Sleepy
Or
Terry.
is that June?
Gee, yeah.
I talked to my
July, October, January, April.
Yeah, that's.
That's on our fiscal year quarterly.
And July so July would be the last. The July
I
would
would
be
think
the
April would be the last. Because at the April meeting, you'll have the April numbers.
Tell me what you just said again.
July, October, January, April.
July won't work.
So
Your fiscal year starts May 1st.
May 1st.
So it's May, June, July is actually your first quarter of the year.
That's what I said, July.
Okay, but if the month isn't up yet, you can't have the report.
we can't have year we can't have year end until July.
That's all I'm trying to, August.
August, November, February, June. Now, you've got quarters that were the.
No, May.
Say that
May,
again.
not June, May.
May. But you
I
could skip
don't
a month,
care.
you could skip a month for the end of the year and make it June, and that'd be more.
That's why I said June was, so you have an end of the year.
So those are what we want.
Could you say it again?
August, nope, August for the first quarter.
Yeah.
November for the second quarter.
Uh-huh.
Okay, February for the
February.
third quarter.
And June
And
would
June
be
for the final
year
quarter
end. Okay.
and year wrap up.
There's no August meeting.
No, you're right, there isn't.
That's right, there isn't.
So it would be September.
So that would be September.
Well, that's okay. I mean,
Look,
because the sun.
Your
that's
point's
okay.
well taken. I'm just trying to solve the issue.
Yeah,
That's
just
all.
make
I
it
think the first one meets the test. Okay, so it's
Make it September.
July when we do the year-end report. Oh my God. But we'll have the numbers before
Quite
that.
frankly, I think that makes sense to me because that whoever the members on that board that are outgoing should have the opportunity to have the year end. And July is their
I just
last
want
meeting.
quarterly, and I want monthly to be part of the general manager report like it has been forever until November of
So
last
we will
year.
go back to the original July, October, January, April, and July will be our fourth one, and it will be year end, and it'll be plenty of time for year end.
Good, so then we can do the year end
Is that,
next meeting
is that relatively early
for
in July?
last year. We haven't done last year yet.
There's no way to tell, Dave, because it depends on the next board.
If you're going to do the outgoing, do it for the outgoing boards, and you do it at the end, you know, it's just.
Well, that's why you do it in July. I mean, I don't know what no way to
They're not
know when in the
outgoing
month
until
the
August.
next board's gonna meet, you know,
Yeah, they're pushing.
whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, got it.
Next.
Got it. Okay.
What's your next one?
Financials, all right?
Monthly financials.
Monthly financials, but this stuff, when we're talking about it, it used to be in our package supposedly a week before the meeting, but it got to where we weren't quite making it. And what we did when I first joined this board in August was decided, it might have been September, I've got the emails, we're gonna push the meeting back a week to give management plenty of time to have this stuff in our package. My package this meeting was 5 sheets of paper that I already had emailed to me. No purchase bidding, no monthly statement, no anything.
I'd like to propose that we all move the meeting into the next month to give a little bit more time, to the.
Dumb it down. Dumb it down. Good idea.
No, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to solve a problem.
All my good ideas go no place.
Is there a good reason for that?
All right.
I was gonna say something about that.
We need the material. We need the
so,
material
Bob.
like the bylaws say we should get the material, when the bylaws say we should get the material.
How can-
Am I wrong, or isn't that 3 working days prior to the meeting?
Yes,
What the
it is.
bylaws say?
Yes, but we
Ooh,
agreed to
no.
a week before.
But all the materials, Dan, all the materials.
No, I'm not arguing with you, I agree with you. All of them.
Everything.
But sometimes things happen.
But things happen every month here.
Yes, they do, actually.
No? Well, they should. They should.
And that's the purpose of this discussion, is to get some expectation firmly established so we can move forward. Because
So do
I
we
agree
want-
with Terry, this issue comes up every meeting.
So do we want to keep it the way we did it last year and aim for that a week before? We did the Wednesday before. Now, that being said, that's going to change probably because the next board's probably going to change the meeting date and et cetera, based on everybody's availability.
The bylaws,
Correct?
they call for the 3 days, right?
3 days.
I haven't
So
seen
if
that
every-
yet. Where
if-
is it?
I
Want me
believe
to
Dave.
pull that out?
Okay, yeah, Dave will find it, but I believe.
Really want me to
But
pull
I
it
think
out?
what we're asking, Bob, is your support things, like the things you handed out today. Are they available to us 3 days before?
I handed out a lot.
All the
I handed
things,
out a
yes.
lot today. They're not always available that far in advance. I can certainly make an effort to provide them earlier. Here's where the question comes in. You know, you all pick the date, we'll figure it out. Our business centers need to have time to get their monthly work accomplished, and that's why we had picked the time frame when we did last year. This month's monthly report was delayed because of the auditors, and because of the year end, which we put the information out there. As for getting the other information out, I'll get it to you as soon as we can. The challenge becomes, well, no, you all decide what you want. We'll provide it to you.
I think with the
Here's-
I'm sorry. go ahead.
Here's what I see that's necessary. CPIs, Marty's one of the people that likes to go and look at the properties ahead of time. So
Don't like to, required to.
Okay. Okay. CPIs, there has to be enough time to visit the property. Monthly financials, enough time to absorb them and ask questions and whatever. We figured out the quarterly thing and the month and the year end, so that's good. And then the other was contracts, bids.
Yeah.
If we get them handed to us right at the board meeting, it's difficult sometimes if we have questions that we can't get answered.
I suggest you look at the board resolution that the board voted
Mr.
on.
President,
Exactly.
point of order.
Yes,
Gentleman's out of
please.
order.
I'm sorry, we're
I guess my question is,
Go
Bob,
ahead.
is it possible to have these items that she's just mentioned 3 days before?
It's going to be more than 3 days before.
Well, I'm asking, is it possible for 3 days before? Because I know that you're doing things to the last minute, and I get that, because there's things being changed. But those kinds of things that would require us to perhaps have a vote on, for example, on a bid, or a contract, or, getting people in a committee, or the CPI things, would those things be possible to have 3 days before?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we've already discussed that the CPI things need to be in the board packets. We've been working off that rule now for months. But if it's not in the board packet, we don't vote on it. We changed that months ago.
Well, we voted on one today that wasn't in the board pack.
That was a purchase, that wasn't a CPI investigation.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, anything else?
Did you say appointments as well? Give everybody
I
like
did
to-
mention appointments.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't get the resolution.
All right.
There is an example today, though, a report that is basically, I have Dan's motion that goes back to September of last year. Okay, so that's when the motion was made general instructor, the general manager. The motion was originated by Dan. I have it. I won't read it if I could. But it basically, this study or plan or whatever, that's last September. Now, I'm sorry, but I can't see any reason at all why we're handed that on the day of the meeting. I mean, and then have to call a special meeting because we're just handing it now. I mean, I'm sorry, that's a long time ago. That's a lot of time.
Mr. Stevens, I believe the motion called to have it by this meeting, which you did, so I met the request.
Well, you know what? That is so inadequate. I mean, the motion called to have it for this meeting, but that doesn't mean that you don't provide it so that we can read it. The discussion was supposed to happen now. I'm sorry, it is absolutely unconscionable. I mean, to take that long, I mean, just use common sense, folks.
Mr. Stevens, I don't interpret what the board actions are. You put it in writing, I try to follow those to the best of my ability, which I have in this case.
We're having a discussion that these things will be available hopefully 3 days before the meeting, so that's the reason, Terry, that you brought this up for us to have a discussion. This group has one
This
more.
is not the first time that this happens.
I understand.
Okay, I mean, it's happened before. A major presentation on the yacht club, and we don't get to see it in advance. You know, engineering studies that have been in your possession for 2 months,
If you want
and not made available to the board. I mean, if you're going to make decisions, you have to see and have time to review the stuff. It's as simple as that.
Dave, that's the reason why we're having this discussion.
Well,
The
and
other-
I'm just making the point, but I don't think Bob gets the point.
No, let me clearly make sure I understand, and let me clarify my point. If I'm bringing a presentation to the board, I do it to the best of my ability with the most accurate factual information I have at the time. Now, what happens, you want to get it in advance, Mr. Stevens, so you can dissect it and take away from the presentation before I present it in the intent and the way it was supposed to be presented. It's my job to do that for you, which I certainly try to do. There were no action items in the CIP today, sir. I said you were directed.
I'm not talking about the CIP, and you know it. I'm talking about...
Mr. Stevens, please,
Oh.
I prepared it and got it to you exactly when you directed me to. So when you get upset with me over it, direct me to do it at a different time, I'll have it at a different time. There were no action items by the board on this document. So you have time to read it. We'll discuss again either at the next board meeting or at a special meeting. Whatever you all decide, I'm prepared to answer those questions. Well, I don't know why that upsets you.
So it upsets me because, again, it's a recurring instance of not being given a document, fairly substantial document. I don't know how substantial it really is, but I'll look at it. And not having the time to look at it in advance. I mean, having it in advance would enable us to ask questions that now we have to hold a special meeting to determine whether I want to be able to hear not just my questions, but I want to hear other people's questions. I mean, if that's the purpose of a board, I mean, otherwise we just all go on as individuals and figure it out for ourselves.
Well, if that's the case, respectfully, why wouldn't we just do it at the next board meeting? Add it as an agenda item, you've had a month to review it, and then we discuss it at the open board meeting.
Yeah, I guess I was under the impression that there was some more urgency to this thing than there obviously is. At least that was my expectation. But it's obviously not. But again, I'm trying not to prejudge something I haven't even looked at.
All right. Points well taken on all sides. Terry, thank you for bringing up the awkward discussion. But it had to be held. We meet as a group one more time, and maybe we'll get it right in July.
Maybe.
Moving on. I said maybe.
Just one other thing I didn't have on my list, the financials were on that list as well.
Yeah, free financials, CPI, bids, and appointments.
From the monthly financials, what would you like me to provide in addition to the monthly controller's report, which is the monthly financials?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
That's fine.
What you provide is if there's variances, we bring to our attention.
Yeah, same thing you did today, just the month. Is that the?
Yeah, I mean, if he has
And I have
suggestions.
done that, and
Yeah.
I typically would answer anything
Yeah.
at any board meeting.
And that's
from
great,
those
but Bob, you
Yeah.
haven't presented the monthly numbers since February.
I'll tell you the truth, Mr. Clark, I enjoy presenting them. I think it's the right thing to do. But with the negative and the antagonistic way we're trying to go at each other when they're presented, there's no, the bylaws say.
I
Well, I'm
can't
answering-
change the numbers.
I'm answering your
The
question.
numbers are what
I'm
they
answering
are.
your question, sir.
No, you're not. I didn't ask you a question.
Okay, well, here's what I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna follow the bylaws.
We haven't, but go for it.
Okay, good luck.
Moving on. Appointments. We didn't have a paper on this, but there really isn't one since he's already on the committee. He's already on the committee. It is nominated Don Claggett to become the chair of the Communications Committee. Any objections to that? Right. Barry Whitcomb, reappointment to the Clubs Committee.
No objections.
No objection? Okay, that's done. Media questions? You're not ready.
Don't make comments.
I am in need of a motion.
I motion that we adjourn. Boys!
All those in favor?
Happy hour started.
An hour ago.